10:30.
May 17th, union negotiation. We're on.
Okay, in the room. Actually, let me get the door. Okay, in the room we have Debbie James, John O'Grady, Jim Brantley,
John Fleming.
Jim Brantley, yes.
and myself, Stacy Kippola. Okay. All right.
You want to start off with some low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, we had some things with the last meeting that I had checked off as like okay, but yet we didn't TA them. So can we maybe get through that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I mean, after reviewing some stuff, I was even like the firefighter, paramedic, trainee language. I know that's a full page, but we pretty much were on the same page there. I'd love to get that knocked out.
Which article was that?
13, because 13 was empty, but
Right.
then we filled it with that subject matter.
I think we still had some questions on that we were looking into.
Okay.
So there was an issue there with shift work. Where is Bush? Do you know?
I don't.
Can you
Yeah,
reach out
we
to
can
him?
call, yeah.
I mean, we'll just come back to it.
Okay. So I had,
I know we had come back to you with NFPA standard. I know you all had cited NFPA standard for training conditions in regards to severe weather.
yeah, I had a note here that Bush was going to review that, so he's just checking in with him to see where he is.
Okay.
I think we're okay with that, but we
Sure.
wanted one more review from him on that.
Sure.
Um,
And that would bring everybody to the same standard. There would be no division between
Right.
new hires and
Right,
regardless of the reason for it being there.
okay. I had the time trades. So, Article 20,
Time trades were TA.
did we sign off on that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me,
Yeah, because originally the hang-up was utilize sick or vacation.
Right.
And
we
then
went
y'all
with the
came
sick.
back and you're like,
We
okay,
agreed
let's do
to
sick.
the sick.
yeah.
I'm just going to see if I have a signed copy by both of you.
And we were okay with making civil leave a policy and compassionate leave a policy.
Right, we proposed the bundling of everything that we're moving into a policy
Remember
into
I-
one article.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we had said just list them, and if it's verbatim under the policy, we'll say the policy is in effect and that policy, and that's, it can just be listed in that article.
Okay.
If we had talked about, if in the policy there's something that needs to be treated differently, or we've come to an understanding on how it's going to be handled with regard to the fire department that's specific, we would just underneath that article, a sentence that explains that, it clarifies that, it's the policy except.
So I don't think that's going to be necessary because the only one that really was an exception was the drug and alcohol policy, which we decided to keep in the contract. I just need to get you clean language on what that looks like in comparison to the standard city policy, right?
So you're good with drug and alcohol? as it
Making
is?
that article, or keeping it, I guess, but it would be the full thing. Because right now, it's referencing the city policy, and I think there's one exception that's made in the collective bargaining agreement. So just make the whole thing an article instead of referencing an outside article and causing any kind of confusion.
Inserting the city drug policy into the article
It would
in
be
the
specific
contract.
to the fire department.
Okay. So it wouldn't be the existing city policy, although it's
going to
a
be very
working
similar.
draft.
It's going to be very similar.
Because the hang-up was there between the two sides, random drug testing.
Right.
Right,
That was the only issue.
right. So where are we on that?
I just need to get you a clean copy of the drug and alcohol policy that would distinguish the fire department from everyone else.
Okay,
Okay.
so you're still inserting random drug testing, or you're gonna not? Okay,
If you guys agree to the time trades, Article 20, I had last comment was on April the 11th, the city agreed to use it as a sick leave that they could pick up. If you guys want to table it, want to sign it, initial it, because it was never signed and initial.
Yeah, I think I've got the same copy here.
You do, okay.
I think, but it hasn't been initialed. I mean, I
Right,
don't
none
know
of
that
these,
we've initialed.
yeah, Article 20 has not been initialed, but the city did agree to using sick time, and that was the only thing in
Is it
dispute.
the post 12522 meeting one at the bottom, the footnote? Is that what it says?
No.
Oh.
We had a personnel issue who's on the way.
Okay.
Here, compare these and see if that's, we can just sign off of it. See if that's,
and we're going, is today the day we're going until 12, just to confirm?
Yeah.
Okay,
Previously, I had something else scheduled for this afternoon, but that got canceled. That's
Oh, sure.
It was weird.
oh, this says,
Anyhow.
there's different, this.
calendars
Oh, no,
are
that's as far as.
always nebulous.
Vision chief, okay, that's right. Yeah, they're the same.
Yeah, for a suggestion.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It was my deposition got canceled.
I'm doing it today, we actually created this last time.
On the 11th, yeah, April the 11th. And I'll go get copies of all this.
Well,
We're
we
good.
I should just sign it and give it back to you. And then we'll both have one. Let's see. That. Just give me one of those two back. Oh, here's your pen.
It's a doc copy. Same thing.
Oh, I only signed the first page. Did you want both?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I just went through again, I think there's a list of articles that I don't have a counter proposal from the city on it. I don't have any record that the city's responded that were included on our initial package. I think some of them were because, and I'm going to go through the list in a minute. I think some of them were because we wanted to do this policy thing, put them in that policy article, which I think we decided, what article will we do? Article 5?
I'm sorry, let me pull that right here.
Which one did I give them that has the list?
Article 5.
Yeah, incorporated city fire department policies, that's what it was. And I had given you a kind of a draft
It
sample.
looked like that, with the little.
So you're
highlights.
saying instead of, so right now, 5 is nepotism.
Right.
We're just going to substitute all the
Nepotism would
policies.
be in there, but whatever we're going to do policy-wise,
Right.
we'll put it here. And
Okay.
then under each one, the way I did it was A, B, C, D, E, policy number such and such, civil leaves, policy such and such, compassionate leave. And then if there was some distinction that needed to be made or clarification or addition, I just paragraphed it underneath. And then, so that I had given you a sample of that. So I understand some of what I'm going to give you in this list are those.
Okay.
Jim, this is what you're talking about here, right?
Yes, yes. And then some of them, I believe you had said were kind of economic and you wanted to hold on to them maybe until later in the process. But the ones I've got right now that, and I'm hoping my records are correct, that the ones we have not received back are Article 16,
Correct.
overtime callback, Article 31, educational incentive plan,
Correct.
32, supplemental workers' comp,
Correct.
33, compensation at separation,
Correct.
35, performance evaluations,
Correct.
39, vacation,
Correct.
40, sick,
Correct.
45, parental leave,
Yes.
46, personnel files,
Yes.
49, holiday.
Yes. So I don't have anything to hand to you today, but I mean, we can talk about maybe kind of a summary of the direction that we're going with some of these.
You know what might be helpful now? Let's kind of go through the list of ones that are not TA and just kind of see, and you don't need to pull them up. Let's just go through and say kind of where are we with these and what's going on with
Okay.
these. Okay. So 5, nepotism is going to be this new article.
Okay.
With right? 6, union business. Mine says under review, but I don't remember where we're apart on this.
So we had the electronic board language in there, and y'all were cool with that, and then,
Yeah, that one, actually, I talked to the chief after that. So I don't know if you've had a conversation with him. He's looking at a system to use in each of the facilities that is something that will provide you with, if there's a call, it comes up on the screen and shows you, what the call is, what's needed, the direction that you're going. And he was looking at being able to incorporate essentially what you were saying here in that system. So instead of having 2 systems, he was looking at more of combining what was happening.
for me, that is fine for
Yeah.
me, because we just need, whenever a call's not going out, as long as documents can roll across for information sharing,
Right,
as long as that's,
slideshow in between.
right.
yeah, as long as it has the capability to roll documents across it, MOUs, meeting notices, things of that
Okay.
nature, that's what we're looking for.
Okay. And I do have a counter language for 6. I don't have it printed out for you today, but based on my conversation with him, I was essentially just taking the bulletin board section and really keeping a lot of what we already have agreed to in terms of what we just said. So the union would have the ability to put their business items up there. The city would be able to use it to put anything that's business related for the city on it, and then also provide you guys with the information that you need for specific calls.
What did you take out?
Well, I not really anything. Hold on now. 6.
I think we're just looking to add the system of dissemination, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's.
And it being a joint system, but
Right.
and that is something that he's looking at budgeting for next year. That was part of the discussion that we had with him last week, budget-wise. So he is looking to move in that direction.
My only reservation would be to ink it and just include it as part of the contract, so he
absolutely.
doesn't have to
Absolutely.
budget. Well, he has to budget for it,
Right.
but it would be locked in that it would be provided, because obviously things get cut out of budgets every day, so.
Oh, you mean have it written so that, like, if the city decides not to provide it, the union still wants to?
Yeah,
Is that-
we
yeah.
would still have
Okay.
the ability to put our own system
Okay.
in. We'd really like to move to this sooner than later, if we can.
And then it would still be bi-directional, like, if y'all wanted to post some information on there, we would just have a working relationship to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I can have that for you. We meet again Monday, right?
I will not be here, I'm in a class, but,
Okay.
and actually, Connor and Drew are also in a hazmat class, so you'll probably you'll have Jim, you'll have John, and then we may bring like an ex-president in or something, just
Okay.
with a little bit of history and background
Okay.
purposes.
Drug testing, you said you're bringing us
We'll bring a
language
clean
back.
copy back, yes.
And we had given you language on the firefighter paramedic trainees, kind of how we bring those single certs in and utilize them.
She said Bush, when
Yeah.
Bush gets here, he's
Oh,
gonna
okay,
cover
okay, all right.
that and.
That and
the,
extreme
severe-
weather.
Yeah, weather for training.
Article 19.
Okay.
Come on, Bush.
16, the overtime. Overtime callback.
Just status quo.
Yeah, we had proposed status quo on 16. Or, no, we did not. No, there's
Yeah,
changes.
we had some changes.
Mandatory overtime.
Yeah. No, I should have that for you Monday.
And city appointed.
Okay.
And that's just based on off COVID stuff. Do the proposed changes look on the surface acceptable, or do you have any reservations? Because what I have added was strike through underline in section 4 and then an addition of section 7.
Just for that. 16.
Yeah. They put it in the first one, which I can pull out though.
I don't think it's anything drastic, honestly.
And if you have any questions, I'm happy to
I
answer
mean,
them.
the only thing, so things like section 3 of that one, all overtime will be tracked per applicable agreed upon SOP. Just, I mean, we're back to, conversations that we've had before where there are these policies that have been developed outside of the collective bargaining agreement, but impact the collective bargaining agreement. So that's something that we'll be taking a look at. And this just came up again for HR with regard to working out of rank. That there's this separate standard operating procedure that isn't necessarily consistent with what's in the collective bargaining agreement, and that's causing some issues with the city's review of who's eligible for what. So things like that we'll be certainly taking a look at.
And the lens that we see it through is the CBA only puts up an outside fence, and then the SOP just works. Because there's a lot of ambiguity, especially when it comes to making rules for the software program that we use, CrewSense.
Okay.
It's either its capabilities are it's only capable of doing so much, or we understand that the more rules that you put onto CrewSense, the more difficult it is to run the program, and the harder it is for the shift commander to adhere to the program.
Are you talking about something like a working out of rank?
Well, whether it's in
Or are you
regards
talking
to
about
working out a rank
overtime?
or calculating the overtime, like, that's why section 4, that language was inserted to not bifurcate mandatory overtime from voluntary overtime. It actually simplifies what the shift commander has to do. And it simplifies the calculation for the CrewSense program, because
So-
now it doesn't have to separate.
So you're saying the CrewSense is essentially what's driving this change? The
I
software
would say that's
is what's
one of the
driving
variables,
change?
yeah.
Okay.
But then you also have issues when it comes to working out a rank, when it comes to guys trying to, whether it's secure time off, because guys are getting their, whether it's vacation requests, time trade requests, denied, because staffing will get done a couple weeks out, ideally. But then you have sick and vacation utilization, right? So because a guy is doing something mutually beneficial, which is help the city prevent overtime by working out a rank, as well as enhance their career, they're now not able to get time off because they're qualified to work out a rank and backfill a vacation slot.
Okay.
The shift commander denies their time off
Because they're working out of rank?
because they have the capacity to work out a rank, and when that shift commander does staffing, he needs to fill that slot, and because he's the guy, that can fill the slot, he gets his time off request denied.
Because of mandatory overtime.
No, because of his capacity to work out of rank.
A potential? of-
No, I think he's talking about like, if someone requests vacation time,
Mhm.
someone in a higher rank,
Right?
he needs to be able to fill that slot. And that would be the person that's eligible to work out of rank. And
Correct.
he asks for time off,
Mhm.
even though he's not
Correct.
necessarily working in the upper
Because-
rank, right?
Now, because if the shift commander doesn't utilize that employee who has the capacity to work out a rank and fill that higher slot, he'll have to hire overtime. So there's a lot of nuance to all this, and allowing SOP to be separate from the CBA has its advantages, because then we can work around those problems. But we see the CBA as just setting like some finality or some limits to it that we just want to reserve, you know?
So like the issue that came up recently though, so the request is sent to HR for someone to work out of rank. Actually, I think it was an extension of the working out of rank.
Was it a grievance?
No,
Okay.
no, it was just, so essentially it's just the processing.
They did the
for
clearing
HR
process,
to
they
know.
were successful.
What's that?
I'm just trying to catch up to you. Because internally, the employee's gonna have to do a clearing process to work out a rank before HR even needs to be involved. So I take it they successfully went through the clearing process, and it was to notify HR incentive.
It was, yes, but it was actually, what they were requesting was an extension for another year of working out of rank. And
Okay.
there was an indication that it fell within the collective bargaining agreement and the standard operating procedure. But when you looked at the two, they didn't match up.
Mhm.
So that's what HR is looking at.
I'm not familiar with
Yeah.
this particular issue.
It
I'm not saying
actually,
it's not, but, you know.
no, it actually came down to the promotion process and getting put on the list. Or it actually looked like the person didn't make the list.
No, I think actually there may have been a grievance afterwards on that. Because I think I know the employee that we're talking about. It sounds familiar. Because there was a grievance process. Connor was the grievance rep. It was because they had a bunch of time off, or there was some conflict between their working out of rank eligibility, because they, for whatever reason, lost their eligibility, and you get, and then they weren't able to take the test, or they weren't.
Because they were on leave?
Because you have to be cleared to work out of rank to sit for a promotional exam for 3 months before you can take a test.
Right.
So this particular individual, the way it was presented was they tested
Mhm.
and they didn't score high enough. So they retested later. Yeah. see?
That doesn't make sense, because you hold a promotional exam and everybody tests at the same time. There is no...
So you understand our confusion.
I think there might be a failure to communicate on some level, because if that happened, I would say it would be absurd.
Bush might be able to enlighten us when he gets here.
Because if a guy was allowed to retake a promotional exam and nobody else was,
And that's what we were looking at.
yeah, I just...
Why did that, how did
I've
this,
never heard
how
that
did this
before,
person,
I've never heard
how
that.
did this person meet eligibility to work out of rank when they sat for their promotional and didn't score high enough, but yet they're working out of rank? And then when you read the policy, the standard operating policy and the collective bargaining agreement, it would make it look like even in that situation, he would only be eligible for 2 years, or he'd have to test out again. But what was coming from the fire department was they were pointing to something else, and it was either the collective bargaining agreement or the policy that said it's good for 3 years. So we're looking at all of these variables and saying this isn't matching up.
No, makes sense. The only other thing I could think of is they didn't pass the promotional exam, and the language states you're going to lose your working out of class rank if you don't pass the promotional exam.
Within
And
3
I
months?
think
Is there a 3
You
month
just-
variable in there?
the 3-month variable is you have to be qualified to work out a rank prior to the exam for 3 months to be
Okay.
eligible to take it. But if you don't pass the promotional exam, then you lose your working out of rank as a cascading effect of that. Where I think last time I heard about that issue, it was both sides were okay with taking into consideration that the testing candidate is under the duress and stress of taking a promotional exam. We're not necessarily going to count that process because guys make silly mistakes at promotional exams every day, whereas in the field they don't. So.
I think we need Bush here there's more to the story. I mean, it could have been an engineer. You know,
I don't even, yeah.
Right, so
We're
we
not
don't even
sure-
know,
we're
we
not
don't
sure
know the
that we're on the same
players,
page.
right, we don't know, we're going down a rabbit hole here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so then the
I made my point though.
I get it.
Yeah, I get it,
mine.
I get it, and I was ready to argue that point, but there's too much,
Right.
there's too many other things going on here
Well,
that,
I mean, honestly though, like, these really are the conversations that we should be having.
Yes.
Because you guys have the working understanding of all of these variables. And there was some attempt to put it in writing, and it didn't really match. So then we're going to do a standard operating procedure because we're going to try to get it to match what's actually happening. When really we should just take the time to figure out, you know, your understanding and how do we put that in writing so that everyone has a clear picture of this is the process. So that, you know, when something comes over to HR, because they're not living that every day. They don't know what I mean, you sat there and went through all of these different things because that's what you deal with every day. They're looking at what's in writing, right? But when it comes over from the fire department, they're looking at this is what's in writing. Now you want me to put my signature on it, but nothing makes sense. I can't approve this because,
They're just conflicting language.
yeah.
I understand.
Okay.
and we're possibly talking about a certification process compared to a promotional process. That's why I think we need Bush here.
They're entangled by the language.
Right, but
Yes.
one, you're able to work with somebody to make sure they make certification if they don't make it. You know what I mean? I can continually work with a
But not with
paramedic.
promotion.
I can continually work with an engineer, extra training, get them through that promotional process. There's a set deadline. And if something happened, like you said, the union should be the one jumping up and down saying, heck no, because you're representing the majority. So I think, once again, we're going down the rabbit hole, but I think we're talking about a certification process where there is leeway to work with somebody because of the duress or because of other things going on, that we want this person certified as an engineer, as a paramedic, so we can do the extra extended training.
And not to drag it out longer, but the language that requires the employee to be cleared to work out of rank, can we agree, is a benefit to the city as much as it is to the employee, because like they need to do it to get promoted and it prevents overtime.
That's why you extend training. Mhm.
But that's different than in promotion if somebody fails.
Correct.
the
Yeah,
promotion. Right.
Correct.
Right.
You want to untangle.
Okay.
But, I mean, this person has been certified then to work out of rank for 2 years. Why wouldn't they sit for a promotional exam within 2 years?
Because they just don't want to.
Why would they not want to?
They might
They
not
prefer-
want the everyday responsibility. They
Right.
gotta do it once in a while,
Right.
but they don't, whatever's going on in their life or whatever, they don't want to do it day in and day out, but
Okay.
if somebody needs them to step up occasionally.
And it goes back to John's point. So if I'm a regular firefighter, but I'm certified to be an engineer and I don't mind filling in to be an engineer, I don't want to be a full-time engineer, because then when he's making the scheduling, he's going to take me and he's going to put me in a slot to be an engineer. I don't want to be an engineer. I just want to be a fill-in if you need it. Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah, but then you're also saying it becomes a conflict because they're viewed then as a fill-in, but hey, I wanted to take vacation that day. Now you're not letting me because someone else.
I'll get vacation before that full-time engineer does, for an engineer position.
It depends, because you're allowed 2 vacation slots per rank to prevent overtime.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, going down the list. 17 wages and 18 incentive are being negotiated. We're back and forth on those. We know where those are. 19 extreme weather. You said Bush, that's one that
Yep.
Bush is going to respond to. Where are we with Article 21, minimum safe staffing levels?
We will come back to you with that one next meeting, Monday.
Uh, 23 physical exams.
So that one has been going through some review. We're going out for an RFP for the services beginning this year. I believe the department's due in September. So we've been working through the NFPA, making sure that we have everything covered. What's in the current agreement is not really what's happening, right? We're working through that. I actually hope to have that completed this week, so we should have you a draft for Monday.
Okay.
'24 physical fitness and wellness program. I've got some language here that
I think we gave it to him already in regards to the reimbursement of costs for personal training.
Yeah.
Because we were having that conversation about the peer fitness trainer program.
Right.
And it's very heavy lift for basically the department.
we had a standard operating procedure. Was this something that where we were? February 8th, we had given you an article, and then on, I don't know what day, we gave you the additional language. But there was an SOP. Is this one that the city wants to put in an SOP?
This was one originally looking
Yeah,
at this. Yeah, we had proposed.
Physical fitness program, policy number 6-23.
Yeah.
Yes. With some changes in that, and then you all came back with proposal within the article, I believe.
Yeah, the question was, we were going to add that to Article 24, yeah?
This is an ad,
John, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
so leave 24
We could put it in the
as
policy.
is and
Or it
add.
could go in the policy.
Like, I think we proposed to put it in the policy. However, we can do Article 24 as well, so.
So I need to review this a little bit more with our team here. So let me just see if I understand this.
Sure.
At one point, we had people within the department that were essentially providing some assistance to other members within that was the goal?
That was good.
That was the goal?
That was one of them.
Okay. And you did like,
We took
here's your training plan for the day.
It never got that far.
Okay. Oh,
It
was in
there's so much
concept.
history to
okay.
it.
Well, this starts with the IFF.
This is a joint
IFF joint with the IFC.
chiefs and
They developed
everybody.
this joint program.
Okay.
And then here and in many, many, many other places, there were goals or attempts to incorporate and roll that program out. It was designed to be, let's train up people kind of on each shift, possibly on each shift in each station. So,
Nutrition, flexibility, injury prevention, plus standard exercising, right?
and then they would have enough knowledge to work with those on their shift for the designated time and the equipment, and, right? That's the goal. There is a program that was worked on for quite some time before it was finalized between the IFC and the IFF.
And,
Wellness Fitness
and
Initiative.
so we took a class for 2 weeks. We got a certification from the American Council on Exercise. We were like certified personal trainers, right? So we come back, and I, with my cohort, we built a policy. And this is before Chief Snyder. This is how far this goes back. This goes
Okay.
3 chiefs before Chief Snyder.
Okay.
This is why I'm
So
bringing
why
that
did it never get off the ground?
because they always had, well, first of all, I never had responses. I had full-blown policies for a full Pure Fitness Trainer program, and it fell on deaf ears. I never got responses from the fire chief. I sent it through the chain of command twice. And after that, I said, well, okay then, we'll just do what we can do day to day as officers on the truck.
Okay.
But is essentially how that went down.
Is
And
this
then-
still a viable program?
That's all up to administration. And
What we had
yeah,
said
it's-
is, I think that last language was either, if the department's position was that the program as it is envisioned by the IFC program is too cumbersome or too burdensome or just not able to be done, we kind of pivoted with that additional language we said and said, okay, well then let's encourage people to do this stuff off duty. Go get their own, commit their own time to it, and the city pay for up to a max their memberships in CrossFit training or self-defense training or yoga or personal training or whatever it is, up to that max, and have them work on it themselves, not in the guise of on duty under the IFC Wellness Fitness Initiative.
To run the program as it's written per the national agreement and joint agreement, the cost would almost be the same, because it's essentially taught us to we were personal trainers, certified personal trainers, and we are to administer a personal training service to the members, particularly the ones that may have behavioral health issues or physical injury as they're coming back and maybe on line duty.
And I can tell you that, I think I've been out of the fire service now 16 years, I think. But I think from where I sit, I understand, I think I understand when a fire chief says, okay, I can't squeeze another thing in here. I mean, we've got ALS training and retraining for paramedics that has to be ongoing. We have new hire orientations, and we got people coming, and we're trying to expand staff, and so we have that going on. We've got ladder and pump operator training where we're trying to get these folks trained up so that they can safely, proficiently operate these apparatus. And that's an ongoing. Once you do it, you have to recert that as well. And then we're kind of overlaying that with running calls and, oh, by the way, let's do a wellness fitness initiative and squeeze that into the mix as well. So I think I understand sometimes when a chief says, and I think it is a bigger challenge if you're not a huge metropolitan department that can maybe commit a staff person to oversee this or take it on, to say, company officers are full. They got enough. We're demanding that they do maintenance checks and truck checks and run calls and performance evaluations on employees and maintain their paramedic training and recertifications and new certifications and their pump ops and hydraulics and ladder operations. And I can see them saying, I understand the benefits, but we can't squeeze it in right now. I don't see any way to
So
make it work.
there's already time carved out to work out on duty.
Yes.
Okay. But you're saying that there is no,
It's voluntary.
right, so there's no
when
system pushed down from the chief on, a workout regime. It's just voluntary, but the time's there. So at the end of the year, do you guys have an annual physical standard that you need to pass, or you may be terminated?
There's a physical agility test
That you need to
That
pass every
we
year?
have to pass, which has been within our negotiations, and we're bargaining over. We've agreed to lower the time limit because it's a more recent implementation of that program. So that, yes, that all exists, and they're given several months to a year to retrain and get up to speed and get to time.
If they don't hit the time.
Right, so there is disciplinary action way down the road after they've been given an opportunity to get everything in order. So that does exist, and that's a job requirement.
On a yearly basis, you have to
Yes,
take this
on an
agility test.
Yes, correct.
Has anybody been terminated?
Not that I know of.
Has anybody failed and then we've worked with them?
I can't answer. I don't know. There may be one or two, but the time threshold has been very high to allow the implementation of the program.
Right.
And then people don't get their feathers ruffled or concerned about.
So I hear what you're saying. I'm
Sure.
a firm believer in it. The time's been carved out. The program is good. Coming from where I came from, they had a program and it was great, 90% participation. So I think the way that we get this is, with the union and the city, we lower that time, make it, still...
We've already agreed to it.
Right. So we lower the time to make everybody take it seriously, right? I guess it's been implemented, so now it's time people take it seriously. And as firefighters have more difficult time passing the agility test, I think they're going to naturally start looking at a program that we will have available to them. So I think it's going to be a process. I know you've been working on it since Chief Snyder. I'm just thinking the implementation.
3 chiefs before chiefs.
Okay, I just think the implementation from the top down wasn't there, and that happens on a lot of things. But if we make it harder to pass the agility test, but still within a standard, that's agreeable, then people are going to start taking their physical fitness, nutrition, everything a little bit more serious, especially because we're giving it to them on duty. That's my opinion on that. If you make it right now I can walk and pass the agility test, why would I even work out? But if I have to at least be able to breathe and do this and do that, because you're right, when I'm up on I-4 and a 5-car accident with burning and everything, this and that, and my adrenaline's going, but I've never trained for that, I may become a liability because I'm going to be a victim because I haven't trained.
Yeah, here's what I know about that. I heard the great Chief Al Bernasini talk about this program in Phoenix in the 80s, late 80s, was one of the first departments to really take this on and make it a big deal and incorporate it. And what Brunasini said is that as long as you make the structure of the program should be mandatory, non-punitive. Meaning, this annual fitness evaluation, everybody has to do it. There's no getting out of that. You're going to do it. What he found was that you certainly work with people who don't meet the time and try to get them to their time. But he said it's at about a 98% in Phoenix's experience, 98, 99%. It's self-regulating because you don't really have to terminate anybody. Generally, firefighters don't like the stigma of being the guy or gal who simply cannot get this thing done. It's embarrassing. They know it's embarrassing. They know what their job is. And his experience was, you don't have to come down with the hammer. You just have to make them go through the test every year. And it takes care of itself 98, 99% of the time. And he said that was, from his perspective, that was good enough for him. And over time, it improves because it changed the culture of the department over a long period of time to where it even, people understood what the deal was. And when the people on their shift right next to them and they did a different physical assessment as well. They did it's outlined in the Wellness Fitness Initiative where you measure stretch and grip and
Many of the things that are built into
four or five things, right?
Mm-hmm.
They measured them, and those things were posted, so people knew that the people they were working with knew that they had not done it. And he said that in the culture of the fire service, from his experience, almost always corrected the problem over time. We just, the question is it something that you have the time or the interest in trying to incorporate? Because there's some educational components that go with this too, where when new people come on and they haven't had you got to recircle back and bring back the nutrition class and these other elements so that the people coming through the door get brought on board with the program. And do you want to commit to that and add it and layer it on everything else that's already going on? Or do we want to make it kind of still do the annual, the annual assessment that's done? And like you said, we've already agreed to lower the time. But leave it to the employee to it's however it is they want to do it. If they want to do CrossFit, if they'd rather do whatever it is to improve their lives.
So to you, I would say yes, and we have, as Jim stated, a lot of issues with time allotted. Yeah, we're allotted to do it, but what's call volume been like that day? Do we have the capacity? We have other training, all these things just from an operational standpoint. And then what I can refer back to personally, I've been in physical combat with a diabetic patient with a low blood sugar who's violent. Unlike a law enforcement officer, I don't have anything but my hands. Right? Fortunately, I most likely have at least one other person with me. I've been on the side of Doyle Road with somebody under the influence in a motor vehicle accident, reaching for a gun. And I've been in physical combat, rolling on Doyle Road with somebody with a firearm. Okay. That wasn't fun. So we don't do that type of training on duty. We're not prepared to be in those situations by any means. So that was something else that motivated this language to come across the table to you. I also have some news articles of other firefighters being attacked.
Well, and mental
with
health,
weapons.
we put a mental health component in it too, where, which I think is also important for people to take care of.
So this one's right here in Florida. Firefighter gets attacked with an axe to his head. So this isn't stuff that's going to be done on duty.
These
are the types of things that are
the self-defense training.
Why not?
Fine. Do you want to pay
Why not?
somebody to come in and train the fire department for hand-to-hand combat?
Not hand-to-hand combat, but I mean.
Hand-to-weapon combat?
Well, defensive
Or do we-
tactics anyway.
Yes. I mean, I'm not saying it right, I'm sure, but
I mean, do you do trainings on de-escalation techniques?
absolutely.
Okay. So,
Have you ever reasoned with?
Well, that's something totally, yeah, I'm not, that's not an axe wielding, drug laced situation. I'm not.
Yeah, all
talking
those
about that.
things, we do all those types of things.
Okay.
But I just wanted to bring that into the equation because it is a legitimate concern. We only have so much time in the day, and with call volume picking up as years go on, we don't have time to take advantage of the policy allotted workout time.
So let's go down that road then. So the city agrees for a stipend for training, as well as training on duty, but we give you a stipend to go CrossFit, whatever type of training you want to do, jiu-jitsu, whatever. How do we test? How do we know that our money, our city, our stipend is being put to good use? I mean, what standard are we going to see coming back?
I think there has to be, if somebody is particularly like with CrossFit, there has to be some annual feedback from that provider who they are telling the city they've spent the money on to say how often was this membership used? How the provider can.
Well, I know. So I'm good with a receipt, right, from LA Fitness or whatever. But also, I go back to the agility test every year.
No, we're not talking about eliminating that. Yeah.
No, that's why I said yes and.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not. Our proposal isn't to do away with that annual. That's the accountability part that Bruna City talks about.
We want
As
that.
long as you continue to make, the question is, for the employee getting themselves ready for that, is that something we try to put into the daily routine and bring it in the 24 hours they're on duty? Or do we say, listen, you got to pass this thing. You got a year to get ready for it. Here, you have incentives available to you to go. If your issue is is you know, aerobic capacity or strength, you have the ability to now, in your off time, to go get that taken care of during the year. On the other hand, somebody might say, well, I don't have an issue with that, but boy, I could sure use self-defense training, or, you know, somebody that maybe flirts with anger management issues or problems at home and could use the life coaching or the meditation, or, you know, those types of things. Then they've been given the tools. There's no excuse for them then, a year later, not to come back and pass that annual assessment. So that's all, you know. The question is, and it's really one, is it something we want to work on and develop to do in-house in the scope of everything else going on? Or do we want to hand it to the employee and give them an incentive to go get it taken care of on their own, on their off time? I mean, that's really the question. But again, the other thing I see the profession changing now. We are going to be incorporating, and all of this I think is positive. We're going to be incorporating a public health element into the realm of fire EMS services. We're going to be taking on. There's a move right now to take on and become almost more of a social work, mental health element to the services that we're delivering. There's going to be training that will become necessary for that. And so at what point do you say, listen, you know, what can we do and what can't we do in the scope of the time employees have in 24 hours here and run calls and deliver the services?
And I think that's two different things. I think it comes from management to bring in de-escalation training, how to deal with autistic children, or, you know, an autistic patient. That's for Bush and his command to bring that training in as part of it. And if the union feels they're not getting enough of that, you just need to make it clear. But going back to the physical part, I think that's something that the city would look at. You know, I'm not here to say yes or no, but I get it that you know, the firefighters need to be physically fit, and we just need proof that it's physically fit. And I get the agility test should prove that.
I mean, another way to measure and evaluate would be to measure your work comp claims with a 10-year window. It would take time, but that's part of what they teach you in the peer fitness trainer program. Mm-hmm. You track your work comp claims 5-10 years leading up to your implementation, and then you have to wait for the proper time to evaluate, of course, 5-10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to me that's part of the agility test, stretching, all that stuff, to see if you've gotten better over the years.
On the mental health side, we do have an employee assistance program that's available. Is that something that the staff are encouraged to use?
Absolutely.
Or does that need to be
the peer support,
I guess, packaged a little bit differently to make sure that people understand what's available to them and how they access it?
So I'm a peer support technician with the peer support program that Chief Swisher spearheaded. Through UCF, we talked about all that.
Right.
So what the peer support technician is going to do is suggest things for this employee's recovery and rehabilitation.
Okay,
so,
outside of that, though, the city has an employee assistance program.
Well, that's maybe one of the things they suggest.
But that's for clinical care.
Okay, so...
But physical, mental, outside of going to see the therapist sitting on the couch, that physical training to get your physical body in shape, and obviously there is psychological effects with hormone release, exercising, blah, blah, blah. It's a holistic approach is really what this language allows us to do.
But yeah, I think one of the things that might, particularly in initial incident management, post-incident management, would be to make sure that employees are aware of and make use of their access to EAP.
That's like step one.
Yeah. But, well, step one is the initial.
Well, recognition and...
I'm sorry I'm late, by the way. I had some stuff come up. But one of the problems with EAP that I can tell you from my side of the house and their side of the house is, and a lot of departments are dealing with that, is the EAP people aren't prepared for public safety, basically. Whether it's be a cop, a firefighter, a EMS person, combination of which we all are. Our stories are sometimes so horrific that they become more interested in the story than they do the cure, which is why we're working on trying to develop a South Florida program where we actually would train the EAP people to become accustomed to what our life is like. So it's not just as easy as calling EAP sometimes, because sometimes those people don't know jack, and they become more of a problem than a problem solver. So that is one of the problems we've run into.
The only other thing
And
I
the
would
problem
say,
is we only have, and well, if I could, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm actually trying to do something here. So we only have 3 opportunities to see EAP.
Yeah, sorry.
My wife's job, old job at NASCAR, they have 9 opportunities to see EAP. And what that does, what's that?
I thought it was more than 3.
No, 3. So what that does for you is if the first person you go to is not for you, I won't say they suck, but not for you, then now you're down to only 2. And then the next person you go, it may take you 3 or 4 times to find somebody that actually melds with you. And that's the real issue with, and not, I'm sure it's not just for us, it's probably for the whole city employee. 3 times is really not enough to really meld with the right person if you don't hit them right away. Now, if you get lucky and you hit the first person right away and you guys, are together, you're great. But if it takes you 2 or 3 times to actually, or never after those 3 times, then you're on your own pocketbook after that. And that's one of the big issues with the EAP that I've seen,
Okay,
personally.
good to know.
All right. Article 28, light duty assignments. We had given you something in January on that.
I don't have anything.
I also wanted to do that. They're still.
You gave something?
They're still.
Did you have something from them? No, I don't have anything.
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything on 28.
There is a policy, a fire department SOP was revised in 2020, policy 1-05 on light duty.
I don't have anything.
And I don't know right now how this
I don't
matches.
remember how I didn't bring that up. Did I?
You initiated it.
No, not the policy, I mean in here.
Oh, no. I'm just
Yeah,
saying, I mean,
I don't show that we had actually talked about it at all.
no. me either.
So I know one of the things with the light duty assignments will play into obviously the workers' comp.
Mhm.
So we just want to look at those together to make sure.
Basically, our light duty policy just basically lays out how they do their daily routine. For us.
And focuses more on injuries sustained not on the job.
We don't even,
Right.
no, our light duty policy basically tells you if you're on light duty, this is what's gonna happen when you come to the door. It doesn't dictate what light duty, what
Who
work
can get into it, or
It's
That's all for
assignment.
HR.
Are you sure?
It's more toward assignment, Bush.
So maybe I'm thinking of the workers' comp.
The article in the contract
Yeah.
is, but they're talking about a policy.
And
and I was just,
I'll just go back to our conversation.
well, but this
earlier.
goes back to what John was saying, that the contract language basically says who can and who cannot get light duty, and the policy says if you're assigned light duty, here's how it works.
This is your schedule.
And this is what you will be doing.
Correct.
So that kind of,
We have that in the contract also, right?
No.
Where they work 8-hour shifts, 4 days a week.
No, that's all in the policy.
No, policy.
On our side, we just want to secure the right for somebody to have guaranteed light duty for an on-duty injury.
With priority given to someone who's on a workers' comp.
Did you
Well,
say
that
on
would be
duty or
work
off
comp,
duty?
on duty.
Oh, yeah.
remember normally assigned to
Right,
48, was assigned to a 40 hour.
It wouldn't necessarily happen if it wasn't.
So all of it's just trying to figure out really,
I mean,
like those 2 articles, the workers' comp one and
Yeah.
the light duty one, and making sure that we're kind of all on the same
I mean,
page.
we're-
And our proposal was status quo on that one.
Yeah, like, we obviously fundamentally agree on like CBA article plus a policy. we don't see an issue with that because it allows us flexibility and environments change, legislation changes, and things happen. And that flexibility is nice. Like we see it as reserving that minimum square footage for us to secure. And I'm okay with that, like, there's no right or wrong, but yeah.
It's just trying to get everybody on the same page. So, like I said earlier, and because it'll all end up in HR, and they're looking at it and saying, well, I looked at the collective bargaining agreement because that's the first place that they go. This is what it says in the collective bargaining agreement, right? And then they'll get something that's like, oh, well, there's this SOP. What SOP? They don't have those. So then
They do
when
have
something
them.
else
They have access to
comes
all the
into
policies.
play, then it's that comparison, and that's where the issues come up.
Have we had issues?
No, the only issue we've had with this, the policy, is the general policy guideline. Right.
We
Where-
missed
could
the
you state
earlier
your name?
conversation
Yeah, I wasn't here, so
about-
I don't
No, it's okay. We were talking about the
For the recording.
working out of rank issue that came up last week.
I don't know. I don't know what that is.
All right, so the next one we have
I don't know what
that is
Okay.
unresolved is Edge 31.
I think it did come from Cousins, so I don't know. I'm sorry.
Article
Article
31.
31, Education Incentive Pay Plan.
Term of working on a rank.
Do you have that?
No, it was a specific instance.
Division chief,
It was-
That's
Sorry,
fine.
procrastinate.
that was a term thing. That
Is
isn't,
it term thing?
yes, that is a term thing.
Right, but there were some inconsistencies or sidebar.
The inconsistency is not really per, say, the contract versus working out a rank. It's really the working out a rank. The working out a rank is written for the working out a rank, and it didn't take into effect the term limits that were changed in the contract for promotion. So the decision was, do we make it the same as the promotion, or do we make it its own separate issue? That was the deal. It really didn't have, it wasn't really a conflict as what should we do? It was more of a, which one's the right one to do?
Maybe we should look at the, well, I hadn't-
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
I'll explain.
Okay. 31, I don't have anything to give you today, but just kind of an overview. What we're looking at in the education incentive pay is changing moving forward, that it's not very specific, that we want someone to be receiving an education that actually is relevant to the job. So that's essentially what we're looking at changing there.
We went through that in the past with previous administrations.
Okay.
It was kind of fruitless, but
Why?
What is the,
because most of the time, guys aren't going for unrelated programs. Like,
Okay.
I mean, it's really a non-issue, but
Okay.
and our job is so diverse, you could almost hide anything into it. Unless you just want to do a pre-designated list, which is like really tying people's hands, but
So,
No, I think, so essentially it's broad enough that, like admin is reviewing it. Does it impact the job kind of situation? It's not gonna be like, it has to be in a degree for this, a degree for that, or a degree for that.
okay. Well, that's what it was before.
Not that specific.
Okay, so 32, supplemental workers' comp. I think we had proposed status quo on that in January.
And that one I just need to review a little bit longer with HR. And that, again, ties into the light duty, kind of the designations there. So that's coming.
33, compensation at separation. And that was another one. Those, all four of those were, from our proposal in January, were status quo. the city needs to review it.
So this one I will have for you Monday.
However much.
All right, pension plan in Article 34 is being negotiated. We're back and forth on that. 35, performance evaluations. We had proposed that evaluations be used in awarding points for promotional exams, and I think we had some discussion about that possibly in the promotions article.
Yeah, it was proposed for the tiered, 0 points for standard, 1 point, or half a point for above standard or satisfactory, and
Yeah, the last
Did
two,
we move that to the?
before I left the,
mhm.
yeah, before I left, or wasn't here, you guys were gonna come back with your answer on that article.
Yeah, we're okay with that proposal, and it's gonna be over a 3 year.
Can you pull that one up?
Article 35, I don't have Article 35.
It's gonna be
I think it moved to
over a
something else.
3 year time period. So the
But we
aggregate,
moved that to 36, right? You're talking about in 35, what you proposed, that last sentence.
Right.
Awarding points, and we moved that to Article 36, for
Right.
promotions.
Correct.
promotions and
Right,
assessment,
and here
correct?
it is.
Yeah.
See the value? Subtract 1 point.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure everybody's agreeing with the one that's up on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have a clue.
That language, yeah.
That was emailed to everybody for this meeting.
Was it 3/18/22, that version?
331.
Okay, I don't have that.
I have a proposal from 2/8.
Yeah, I've got one from 2/8.
What's on the
Remember the
screen?
whole average for 3 years, that thing came up with the point system?
Well, I've got,
No, the language that's right there is what I'm saying we're good with for section 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when we print out the whole thing, give it to you, then, because you guys are still looking at the other stuff, is that?
Here, I'm gonna give it to you right now. I'll put another copy later.
Yeah, because we were
Oh,
still
here.
hemming and hawing over like,
yeah, here it is. So there was some discussion about, I think you had wanted to remove, we had talked about, or one of us had wanted to remove the subtract 1 point for below satisfactory.
Is that still in the draft?
Yeah, it's still in here, and I had a
Because
note
we talked
here.
about below satisfactory, they wouldn't even be considered, right?
Number
Isn't
1,
that the discussion?
section 5, number 1.
Right, because there's language in the beginning of the contract.
Yes, that number 1 that says value representing.
yeah, this is meant to only be an incentive, not.
Well, they wouldn't already be, they'd already be out anyways, because in the
Right.
beginning of the.
Right, the natural process.
Right.
There would be no need to.
That's what we discussed, but I thought you guys were gonna come back with language for the whole article, but the element of it, yes,
That
we're all
element,
agreed to.
Yes, because that was dovetailing off 35
And yes,
proposal.
you're correct,
Okay.
Stacy.
So, let's just review this, and I'm sure we can sign off on this one next time. I felt like we were in agreement with the last meeting.
Was there stuff that you
There
guys
was-
had about that?
What about
Motion article?
the language, the newer section 3, we've talked about having, putting language in, I think it had come from you guys about, or maybe this had come from us, the Engineer Academy, was that our language or?
No, that was me.
Okay.
Yeah, that was,
It's not just an engineer academy, it's
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah, but I don't see that incorporated into the,
can we caucus for 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good
you can do that,
one.
yeah, you can, so you don't lose that.
Yes,
We're going on record.
that was in.
Yes.
All right, so we're still talking about promotions, yeah.
Well, you were talking about the academies. And those academies were just notes that I gave to you guys, and you guys were gonna come back with something that's
Right.
We just need to define some stuff in the academy.
Right, so with the
Is that in
academy,
the I'm sorry, is that in the promotions article?
We
or a
didn't
different
decide where we're gonna put it, it was just notes that I
Okay.
gave them.
That was the last meeting when we were discussing.
No, that was a meeting before, but that's when I was
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Yeah,
Whatever.
But go ahead.
Yeah,
yeah.
he's good.
no, so basically, the discussion comes down on with the academies and mandatory classes outside of the certifications for CPR and everything. How are y'all gonna handle the employees on their off-duty days? I didn't know if you had that discussion.
We had not since the last meeting.
So,
Because that was some of y'all were, I thought,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
come
was-
back with some ideas on.
Well, we didn't, that's what we were answering.
Where
How
are
are you guys looking to do it? Like, because I know you,
Our initial writing of the
right now,
notes,
we do it a little different,
so
so.
the initial writing of the notes was that it would be on your own time.
Right.
Right. So we were,
Time, because like time and money, so I don't know what's going on with event pay. So what are you guys thinking with that whole, if mandatory classes, we're gonna send them, you're trying to save time.
we
but
talked about
do-
blocking out vacations.
Yeah,
like we've made all the concessions and then
So we're
we're
just trying to
really looking
figure
at event pay on off days.
or something like that.
Or, yeah, if you have something else.
Whatever you guys propose, I mean, at the initial notes that I gave y'all were
Mhm.
not for us supplying any time, no. It was
Right.
for, but there was multiple different time periods that you could get it within, I think it was 2 years. I think, I don't have the notes because I'm on my computer.
fine.
But, so whatever you guys propose back.
Should we look at event pay still? Should we look at
That's up-
time?
that's up to
That's
the
what I'm
city.
asking.
I tell you what, can you send the notes and I think we've got the rest of the article.
That is the note, what I wrote last time.
Right, can you send it to me electronically?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's okay.
Since we're in this,
And, hey, John, can I
Sure.
just for a little- just for both sides?
Yes.
Like I told y'all before, I'm here for both sides.
Right.
That academy thing is me and the chief trying to make our department
Yeah.
smarter, better, and more efficient. So that's where that academy comes from. And I believe if I remember right, because this was a month and a half ago, 2 months ago.
Right.
That was in place of putting the paramedic in every rank, where we would pull the paramedic out of promotions, because you guys said didn't you? And I said, well, why don't we do the academies instead? And that's where that came from. So, just a little tidbit.
I got you.
All right, and then I had
Do you want
skipped.
to dovetail this back to, now that Bush's here, to working out ranks since it.
No, we'll circle back to it because we've got two that, but I did skip.
Oh, I think Ricardo had a question.
Yeah, so,
Are you
I'll write it
on the
down. We'll do it at
promotions
lunch,
thing?
it's fine, I'll get it at lunch. It's,
Okay.
I have to look through my notes. You're going back to the, I don't.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
It's all right, I'll look at my notes. It's not that big of a deal. It's emotions, it should be simple.
I want to go back just for a moment. You had given us, go back to 34, the pension plan.
Yes.
You had given us a proposal on the 11th of April that increased the contribution rates. Looks like 1% a year over the life of the contract. What's the justification for that? Why, what's the basis for that? The need for that?
So the health essentially of the pension fund. So
It's over 80% funded now, correct?
depends on who you ask.
Well, I understand the difference between, we now know the difference between GRS's numbers and the Foster's, and it just has to do with their GRS is amortizing over 20 and Foster amortizes over 30.
Right, which is just kicking the can down the road.
Disagree.
It's fine.
But But I mean, that's the difference. That really doesn't change the funded ratio. As of right now, I think the funded ratio is still over 80% in the latest actuarial
About
evaluation.
82.
Yeah. So, I don't, what's the motivation for increasing the contribution? Because I assume the city is going to lower their contribution by, so is this a transfer or is this an overall desire to put 4% more into the pension?
Foster and Foster has also made some recommendations. Actually, we felt they should have gone a little bit further, but they made some recommendations on several items, actually. So all of the unfunded moving forward, instead of 30 years, they're doing 20 years.
Was that Foster's recommendation?
Yeah. I believe the pension board agreed to that.
Okay.
The assumed rate of investment return, they are recommending lowering that slightly, although we felt that it should be even lower than what they're using as their assumption. Last year was a good year, but it's not always like that. So, I mean, how much do you
What's it at now?
Current rate, 7.68.
That's the assumed rate of return now?
Yes. The plan over the past 12 years averaged 6.92. Actually, they were not recommending a rate change. So even though their average over 12 years is 6.92% per year, they're still using the higher assumption rate of 7.68. So essentially, when they give you the information regarding your minimum contribution should be X, they're assuming that the rate of return is going to be higher, which just reduces the amount of money going into the plan and continues the unfunded liability.
Right, so you can manipulate those numbers, not saying you're manipulating
Yeah,
the
I'm not
numbers.
manipulating
I'm saying
somebody
any
else's.
time window you choose is going to have a different rate of return, right? So you said 7 years, but if we go to 8 or 9, it can jump to above what the
I think they
assumed
did
rate of
12
return
years.
All right,
The
so,
average of 12 years.
but my question is, in increasing these, is what I'm trying to figure out is there's a total contribution required for the plan. Is this additional 1% per year to go to the unfunded liability and then over and above the contribution rate recommended by the actuary? Or is the city transferring those 4% from their contribution to the employee contribution? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So the change from the 30 to 20 is going to impact, obviously, how much goes or is needed to go into the plan. So that's part of the increase that we're asking for from the firefighters, because that's going to make a change. And yeah, I mean, our overall goal is to get the unfunded rate down. You're looking at a fund that was, the unfunded rate was $364,000 in 2014. And here we are, 16 years later, and so 8 million or 14, depending on how you look at it. So we're looking for the long-term health of the pension plan, not just for the firefighters. I mean, obviously, this is something that's guaranteed to them, but
I understand. That's still not answering my question. Is it the plan to have, if the actuary says there's a total needed of 30% of the payroll to fund this, is the city's plan that we're going to
contribute more to get the unfunded down?
Okay, but is the more,
Is
the
city's-
1% more?
So are we taking that, so if it's 50, they're saying you have to provide 50%, and we're saying the firefighters are 10.
Because the way it is now, you take the whatever money flows from premium tax money.
Right.
Right? And then we take the employee contribution.
Right.
Then whatever's
City
left
pays
is the
difference.
city.
Right.
So the question is, to get to that number that the actuary says, so the question is, are we increasing the amount the employees pay so that the city's remainder is less, or are we taking this extra 1%, we're going to fund it the way we fund it now, and then put an additional 1% over and above whatever the actuary says, specifically go to the unfunded liability?
Right.
Okay.
Do you know what the Amanda needs? They're just time sensitive.
No, I haven't looked at my phone down.
Okay, 39 promotions. I mean, vacation.
I gotta leave for just a second.
We had
Yeah,
given
I
a
got it.
proposal in January, and I think our proposal was status quo.
So we can come back to you Monday with that one. I think the biggest change that we're looking there, so we were looking at there's no cap on the vacation time, and that obviously is a financial burden for the city. So we're looking at implementing a cap. Obviously, it'd be a reasonable cap for how much you can actually put in your vacation bank. And anything over that cap, at this point, we would pay everyone out now to reduce future liability.
You have a ballpark cap number?
I have to look. I think for the fire department, we were in the 600 range, but I'll have that for you Monday.
Okay. 40 sick leave. Again, we had provided January status quo.
I should have that one for you on Monday.
Okay, 41 is an open article. 43, compassionate leave. I believe this is one that we had talked about doing under Article 5 with the...
It's gonna be 30 when
Yeah.
title.
That'll change. 44, educational assistance program. We've given a proposal. This is I think the language that we had incorporated here came from the MOU, the December MOU.
I'm sorry, I don't have a copy of that with me. I'll have to get back to you.
45 parental leave. We had proposed status quo except one change, which would allow for the rules of the article to be applicable for the adoption of a child 7 years old or younger.
What is the thought process behind that, adding that?
So that came up day one when the fire chief consultant was there. He asked me the same thing. He's like, so what basis did you pick 7 out of? And I told him straight up, I could pull down research papers from a whole bunch of academic institutions, and I can justify virtually any number I want to. When we can get 10 different clinicians' opinions. We thought that was a fair age from where we were standing, because it's a difficult process no matter how old they are, but we wanted to leave some leeway for the fire chief, you know? I mean, I think it goes...
The younger children, when they're adopted, are going to need...
bonding
Yeah,
time.
there's going to have to be a period of adjustment where older kids, the idea is that an older kid will need less of that early committed time.
And I guess I'm getting at, so a firefighter is dating a significant other for several years, helping raise their kids, and then they get married, and then they adopt that child. This firefighter would be qualified for the parental leave, having helped raise the kid already for 3-4 years. And compared to, I get what you're saying, adopt somebody from a foreign country, bring them over.
I wasn't implying a foreign country hypothetical.
Adopting somebody,
Georgia.
adopting somebody from Georgia, yes, or whatever. I mean, there's a huge distinction
I would
here.
agree with that. I think there is a difference. I think that we could put entertain language to say that this is for where there's been no prior relationship prior to the adoption.
That's
Right.
And even that can be to the fire chief's discretion, you know? Because, like, we could do the hypothetical game on it, but like you're saying, there's so many what-ifs in those familial dynamics,
Mhm.
right? So it's
Oh,
like...
yeah.
Yeah, that's why we were saying not, we don't want to put a burden on the city with this adult, like they adopt an adult. So whatever you guys think, just pose it back. It's really just to cover, say, especially with everything going on, where somebody decides to go out of their way to adopt an infant, you know.
And I'm involved in public health to a certain degree, and one thing that's with legislation now in reference to abortion and everything, there may be an impact on children needing to be adopted based on legislation that has to do with abortion. Right or wrong or indifferent, no opinion here, and that's another thing, thinking about these baby boxes going into fire stations, I'm not requesting that, but, for the safe place, no,
Aren't you?
it's a metal, safe place.
Yes, we are a safe place.
Yeah, all the fire stations are safe places.
Right.
So something we should maybe take into consideration as an organization is getting these they're basically a lockbox. The parent or whoever has the baby, giving the baby up, puts the baby in the box, closes it locks, and an alarm goes off in the station. There's a video camera in there, clean air filter, all this stuff, and the baby is now secure in the lockbox instead of leaving it on like a doorstep, and just walking away and ringing the doorbell.
Wow, the world is coming to.
But I mean, we just had a baby.
No, I'm with you.
We just had one.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
At 65, we had a safe place event, and
Yeah.
that's a whole story in itself. But somebody in this city within the past several months came to drop their baby off and give their baby up at the fire station.
Yeah. So any suggestions, you guys, if you want to do the what if and come up with my brain is saying there's not going to be a lot of people adopting kids. I mean, I don't think we're going to have a bunch of people adopt kids just to get time off. But if you guys have some what ifs and you want to put them in there, it's not meant to cause you guys a liability or cost. It's just to cover some bases for people that.
I mean, the cost of adoption is
It's
astronomical.
Yeah, well, people can't take care of themselves, let alone the kid.
Sure.
So I agree. I don't think there's going to be a lot of adopting going on.
$50,000 for an extra week off.
So the biggest concern with this article is the 26 weeks above the 12 FMLA. So essentially, we're telling someone they can take 38 weeks, and obviously that causes some scheduling issues. So standard, you get 12
I mean, we've had
weeks.
it, how long has that been in there? For as long as I can remember, 15 years?
Chrissy Gallagher put it in there.
Yeah, 15, 20. Yeah, we've never really had any issues with it. It's above and beyond in case of some extenuating circumstances with health or whatever. I mean, like I said, if you guys have a way of, you want to propose something and what ifs.
It was just, that protection in case there was some advanced situation such as postpartum or complications with an underdeveloped fetus being
Okay.
born or something.
I'd have to get with Chrissy. I mean, I don't know the whole thing, but it's been in there for so long, and I honestly don't have any past history of an issue, so.
It's never been utilized, to my knowledge.
I think people are using it.
Hasn't it? But it's been so
I-
far. But it's
in
intermittent.
between.
It might be intermittent. I don't know.
Right, which is the other problem, the allowing the intermittent, and just the tracking of that, and again, the staffing issues that were created.
Mhm.
So we would like to reduce that.
Do you want to reduce the ability of intermittent, or do you, because that's a, HR does that.
The number of weeks.
Well, the way the intermittent, the last time, and I can't remember who it was,
Shit.
nor could I tell you either.
Right.
Right, protected, but, it's not per se intermittent. Once you start using it, you have to use it, and it's not intermittent. But what is intermittent is the time in between. I believe HR allowed, and I'm going back a little bit, HR allowed some time in between regular FMLA and the article parental leave. But once you started using it, it had to be, you couldn't go back and use it again. That was the issue. Remember? Because the union got involved and,
To be honest, it's
So the definition
so
of
long.
intermittent, I mean,
I would say.
my
present
interpretation is you could come to work Monday, your next shift is Thursday, you use FMLA, then your next duty day is Sunday. You
regular
take FMLA.
FMLA intermittent is totally different from parental FMLA. It's two
No,
different things.
I,
We'd have to get Rebecca or somebody from HR, or I don't
So
know, maybe Stacy
FMLA would
knows.
have to be used first, so they exhaust
Yeah,
that.
but even the intermittent part, if I remember right, is different with childbirth. The regular FMLA, but you have to ask
I
Rebecca.
don't think you can take intermittent.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
So I'm looking at my notes from talking with Rebecca, and I think that issues are that it's not clear here that intermittent is not allowed.
Correct.
So she wanted that added, and then
Because
also
regular FMLA is not allowed, for sure.
and then the FMLA being exhausted first is not spelled out here and should be.
so none of that's gonna be, if that's already being adhered to, you just want it in writing.
Where is that? Which one is it? Because
I don't
there's-
have it.
Because it was,
45? 45?
oh,
So there is some.
That was the only thing.
Yeah.
Pretty confident, yeah, back about, pretty sure.
There's-
Regular FMLA.
This is what he said.
You cannot use intermittent. I remember that coming up.
Regular, meaning not,
Not this,
yeah,
our,
yeah, you can.
ask her. There's something about it, I'm telling you.
Do we have
I just
a,
don't remember exactly what it was.
did you guys do a proposal on this, or no, you just verbally?
Yeah.
No, so then- No, just ask her about it.
Okay.
I promise you there's something.
All right, the next one is 46, personnel files. We give you January 24th. This is one of the ones, I don't think we've gotten a response back. And our proposal was status quo.
So I'll have to get back to you on this one. I know we had to review this with HR, and we just want to make sure that the files that are held by the fire department and what's held by HR, that we have a clear understanding of what goes where.
With those files, is there an issue?
I know HR has discussed the issue. I don't know, I can't say. I don't know.
Okay, so what, I just want to make sure with the files, is there an issue with the files that they're being held at the, because we have a policy of holding, off the record, anything that's minor.
Like disciplinary
desk-
things?
Desk
Yeah, you
files,
can
they're
do
not.
desk files, that's fine. No, but we're talking, things that are like protected information that
Oh.
really should be with HR instead of being held with the fire department, things like that.
Okay.
All right, 48, longevity is being negotiated. I know we're back and forth on that. 49 Holiday, we gave you a proposal in January that was status quo.
I'll get back to you on Holiday. I don't think there are any issues with that.
All right, and then on duration, we were 51. There was some discussion about whether we're going to have a 3-year or 4-year agreement.
And that's, you sent, wait, because we didn't see it.
Wait, you still there?
Yeah, I am. And, I read through those cases, Jim, that you sent. I still think that a 3-year agreement is all that's allowed under state law. I saw the cases that you gave me, and it looks like there's some instances where you have a 3-year agreement with some rollovers that exceed the 3 years that are permitted by PERC. But aside from all that, it just seems like in the environment that we're in with all the different things that are going on in terms of inflation and whether it's going to get under control and, wars in Europe, everything. It just seems like it may be difficult to have a multi-year agreement, a full one, without at least some opportunity to have some kind of reopeners to address situations down the road. So I'm not taking a stance right now, but I will tell you that I don't think I want to agree to anything beyond 3 years. And if we do go 3 years, I certainly want some reopeners. So we'll keep talking about that.
Okay, you guys have anything else for us today?
Can I, because I guess.
Oh, we got to circle back. I'm sorry, we do have to go back.
I guess there was something that came up in the last meeting about the extreme weather article.
That's what we're
Yes.
circling back.
And firefighter trainees, so we need to look at 13 and 19.
Yeah, paramedic, firefighter.
So-
trainee.
From my understanding, you guys have to help me out because I wasn't here. I was looking at our
Want me to
recall
tell you?
ambulance.
Recall that hasn't left the factory, that one?
Correct.
You want me to tell you?
Well, hold on. Let me tell you what Chief Snyder told me is that it was something to do with the temp. That you guys wanted a certain temperature that was in 15.
We just bundled everything that NFPA standards.
So there is no real temperature in 1584. There's a graph which I turned off for you guys, and I don't really care. I was simply using the language that Kurt Roman had put into the initial contract and trying to decipher it down to one temperature rather than multiple paragraphs. So now whether or not it's a policy or procedure or it's in the contract itself, again, I don't really have a preference. That's
Yeah,
between you guys.
The city brought up NFPA, so we just were like, okay.
Yeah, I know, and
Pull up
well,
whatever.
it's referenced in the policy, the NFPA, which I'm okay with, but the actual 1584 does not give you an actual temperature, nor does it give you any specifics like what Kurt's article had given. So what I did is I printed off a 2-page thing for you guys.
Is it a matrix where this activity?
Nope.
Do this or?
It's so here's the fact sheet from 1584, and on the back,
I can't reach that. So what do you want to do?
I'm just giving it to you guys for you guys to ponder what you
We
want
just
to do.
came up with the same thing you did. We reviewed the numbers and came up with a temperature on NFPA.
I didn't, Chief Snyder didn't tell me about anything about temperature.
So,
I was told to do homework.
what I have noted, the last conversation, we were stuck between using 92 or 105 degrees.
Right, so the graph, if you look at the graph, I'm going to give you guys the graph from the back. If you look at the graph, so what 1584 does, and they call the apparent temperatures the same thing that we call relative humidity, or the real feel is the apparent temperature.
Mhm.
So they have, if you look where Kurt's stuff fell in between is really the extreme caution, the 91 to 105, where you have possible heat cramps or heat exhaustion. So if you guys want to go for temperature, I would say that we still fall within that zone and just use this graph in the policy as a and at any time. But that's up to you guys.
Yeah, I went back to my notes just, and I think what we had, and I'm fine with making it a range of, 92 to 105, but we say.
Well, I think we need to pick a number, because if you make it a range, then what's going to happen is they're going to go, well, it was 92, it was within the range, and so therefore I didn't do it because it wasn't 105. So I would say that we pick a number in that range, But was there, my question to you would be, was there anything else wrong with that policy, whether it ends up in a contract or ends up as a policy? Was there other things that I needed to work on?
So you're not using humidity as a factor?
It is,
No,
it's
was
over,
it-
if you look at the graph, the humidity is over here.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, within this policy.
If we
No, it
just-
would
You
be,
break it down to heat index.
the-
correct.
That's it.
Which, in 84 calls apparent temperature is the humidity temperature.
Yeah, but
So we would
it's
go on.
it's saying when
I don't think we've,
Yeah,
has
does
anybody
want to
not
find these
done
things.
the training because of this?
So, the range really doesn't work, is it?
Right.
Right.
So if
I would
you
love to
go
say no,
above
but.
and-
But I mean, was it within the guidelines?
Huh?
Was it?
That's not even my issue. My issue is
No,
on
I'm just asking, you said they're gonna say that it's, oh, and I don't have to do, I mean, that, I've never experienced that. So, I mean, if something was, if we used to bring a temperature gauge out and we
Right,
would, so
we
if
still
it
do.
was past that, and they said, okay, we're past that, then that's what they should do.
That's what I'm saying, I just want to pick, a temperature, one temperature, and not
All
have
right.
two.
All right, here's our suggestion. In the one that you had given us 318,
Yep.
if we go under procedure 1, extreme heat, and replace the word heat index with apparent temperature will exceed and make the number 98 degrees, can we TA this?
Hold on, I have the wrong policy in my hand. All right, where are you at? I'm sorry.
The Article 19, version 3.
Oh, you're in Article 19.
Yes, Article 19 is provided 31822. Under procedure, 1A, replace the word heat index with apparent temperature. And we can incorporate the chart so that it's clear to the article. Will exceed 98 degrees. That's mid of the range as I do my calculations.
I would just ask that you just put it in and give it back, that way. there's no confusion there.
Do what now?
He just wants it.
Put it in draft form and just give it back. I want to make sure we got the right numbers.
Okay, can you send this to me electronically?
Yes,
Yeah, Debbie should have.
Well, she can do it right here.
that's what I was doing, but.
Yeah.
So.
That's the policy though, not the, you're talking about the article itself,
I
correct?
changed it to an article.
So originally, we talked about this just being department policy instead of being in the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, that's
Health
where
and
I'm
safety
confused.
issue,
Right.
right?
Yes, that's what, yes.
Yeah, you had handed us, I don't know.
Yeah,
policy
or-
advice.
2-36.
But you're talking about going back to the contract.
I don't care. We can either put it in 5, list it on the ones in 5, as long as the policy says apparent temperature and 98 degrees. And you've given us a policy, which I assume this and this are the same.
Yes, it is.
That's what I'm asking. You're running out of the policy, not the old contract, is what you're running out of, right?
He's telling you he doesn't care. He was reading out of the
What he's-
contract.
He
but-
was reading out of the contract.
Sure.
Well, I was reading
No,
out of the proposal you had given us, which I guess this proposal is the policy
Right.
into the article.
Okay.
I don't care which, 6 to 1 that does the other, but it would be apparent temperature and 98, wherever it is. And
Can you
again,
put that
if
in
you
the
want
document?
Right there it
to
is.
make this a blank
Just
article
highlight it.
and put it in 5, or if we want to leave this Article 19 and make the change here.
So it's in there,
Does it have to
Debbie.
be in the
Debbie-
collective bargaining agreement?
I think it goes under 5. Let's take it out as an article.
What do you guys think?
It'll, if it goes to a policy, then it'll go under 5.
Yeah.
If it stays in the contract, it'll stay 19.
Where do you want it?
We don't
Yeah,
care.
well, she's got it set up as the article now, right?
That's a
No,
Yes.
that's policy.
No, article.
No, that's the article. Let's just,
It's both. That is literally.
Exactly.
a
I
policy
put
cut
the
and
article-
paste.
You put both because,
Thank you.
because we
Yeah.
can't make a decision here.
No, I get it.
so let's just leave it like this and agree to that. and leave it Article
The only
19.
thing I ask you guys to do is make you guys have, because I know we've been really
We want to incorporate
narrowed down
this.
on the heat index. If we're gonna put this in a contract, make sure that the rest of that stuff is good. Because we've really narrowed down to the heat index here. If that's the whole article that I wrote, that deals with a whole lot more than just
you
heat
didn't
index.
Yes,
make any
Bush,
changes
I
to
have
the-
it down here, look, in the very bottom, I have what you,
Everything that's
references.
gonna be provided.
All your
Okay.
references are
Yeah.
included.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
So if you don't mind, which you're saying you don't, let's move it under 5, and we'll go from there. Take the article out, make it a policy under Article 5.
So you're gonna take 19 out and make it a policy?
Under 5, yeah.
Or
Article 5,
removed?
yeah.
We just need to make sure that that this is incorporated as part of the policy, this chart. Right?
Yeah, I can add that as a attachment.
I imagine, I don't
In
really,
this chart,
Well,
Bush is gonna.
I'm gonna have
add
to
in
figure out
this
whatever
one.
mathematical formula
Get it
they're
from him.
using, or somebody's gonna have to.
It's in the policy, John.
The-
1584, it's in this.
So they've cited a formula to put numbers in
There's a
there.
couple paragraphs that talk about it.
Because the matrix just gives you roundabout numbers, so.
Okay.
Okay, because this is, I was thinking part of it. This is way past before. We just fixed it. This is back when those kids were getting sick on football fields. That's how long ago.
Okay, so I'm going to mark that one as agreed to.
So, Jim, I'll just put this
We had people
as
passing out.
part of an attachment to the article then.
Okay,
Out of 1584, will that work?
yeah.
And I'll just do the front and back too, because it'll have the fact sheet too that goes with 1584.
So we can go back. This is a long-standing policy and it protected the city. There's literally still video of firefighters passing out during training because of heat. And you and I weren't part of that, putting it in, but we tried to fix it. So it's funny that we moved it after it was put in for the cities.
Well,
I don't know.
So I think
We're not removing it. It's going to be moved to 5.
I think it's interesting.
Okay. What about,
The only thing, so this, I think, where you reference NFPA 1584, you should also cite that it's the 2022 edition. You may want to have some language that you'll continue to follow,
Yeah, okay.
and the editions after that, like during.
One of the references is simple 2022. There's no-
Okay, cool, that's fine.
Does this mean?
I'll make this an
Yeah,
attachment.
I missed it.
Okay. Attachment A. Okay.
That's what I thought, but.
And then we were waiting for you to talk about 2 other things, which is the firefighter and paramedic training, Article 13. We were hoping to wrap that up today, but Stacy cited that there was some hangups on there.
Yeah, I think we all have to regroup on the firefighter paramedic one.
Is there anything in this specific that is in the proposal that we can understand and think about?
And you're working on the 331 draft?
No, I'm just working on what we gave you. I think
Yeah,
you were gone
330
that meeting, so you didn't get one, sorry.
yeah, the 331, yes.
Oh, the 331 date, I'm like, I thought you were talking about
Oh,
some
draft.
policy.
Okay.
No, I don't know what you're holding.
331.
That's not, unless they retyped it. Mine's all in blue, 100% printed in blue. We gave it to
Yeah,
your
you
side
know
of
what,
the table.
I crossed that off, it says 331, but I put 411.
Oh, so I wasn't
He
here.
wasn't here.
Oh,
Yep, that's
I might have left the wrong footer in there as well.
Okay. This is the original one that I gave out, and then you guys changed. Okay.
I got it. I actually took
I
the
wasn't-
suggestions that you had made
Right.
originally and went and reinserted them.
Gotcha.
And what I notated with asterisks is what I added
Can I have
to
that?
the original proposal. No, but you're gonna.
As a camera.
Yes, you can.
So we do
13.
have to kind of regroup on
The
this
paramedic
one.
training.
Question, just some
Want to make a
discussion
copy
here.
of it?
Is that an extra? Okay, thank you.
So I do recall at one of our previous sessions, the comment was made that not every firefighter is really a paramedic, and not every paramedic is really a firefighter. Like, that's not,
That's not
it's
true.
not the career path that they want to
Every
go
paramedic is firefighter.
Yeah.
currently.
Yeah.
Right, so now we're looking at kind of flipping the way we've always done this, right? So it's always been firefighters come in, if they're not paramedics, we want them to train to be paramedics.
I would phrase it as adjusting the entry portal into the fire department while they are en route to becoming a full-fledged member of the fire department, which
Okay.
is a firefighter paramedic.
Okay, which does present some issues because of the training itself, right? The paramedic training is, let's say, not as conducive to working as, or do I have that backwards? The firefighter training?
As far as going to school,
Yeah,
it's easier to send a firefighter.
firefighter school than it is, okay.
Yeah.
Most cheap.
Huh?
Cheap. They have
Yeah.
shift friends,
No,
they can go
top.
every off day. There's different
Is that true?
classes for paramedic.
Well, you're talking about paramedics, she's talking about firefighter.
Oh,
So what do you?
Paramedic, there is a shift friendly, firefighter, there's not currently.
I don't know.
Firefighter is not
Somehow.
shift friendly.
No.
Right, so now we're saying we want to bring in paramedics, but they're going to have to go to firefighter school, which is not something as easy to manage to go to school and work at the same time.
To a certain extent, I would agree with you.
It's shorter.
Relative
It's a lot
It's a
to,
lot shorter. It's a
only
lot-
relative to a paramedic or a firefighter going to paramedic school.
So let's just, wait, before you go into this.
I know.
So what we're trying to do here, and the union's trying to do with administration, was we went the paramedic route, where we were hiring firefighters, putting them through paramedic school. There's a huge cost to the city for that. They still miss work, they still have to do clinicals, they still, I mean, it's it's a longer period of time, there's definitely more time that they're not gonna meet there's gonna be staffing issues because of the length of the paramedic school
Okay.
compared to the fire school. So what we did is we all sat down and we said, what's the best way to do this to save money? So we all sat down and we were like, okay, well, if there's a bonus, which I sent them a bonus, everybody's doing it now to sign on as a paramedic. Port Orange is doing a significant one. I think we started it and that's gone to the wayside, but other fire departments are now doing what we initiated. We all sat down and we said, okay, fire school's shorter, much shorter. It's a one semester.
One compared to 3.
So then the time frame is much shorter, which then reduces the amount of scheduling issues, which then also reduces the cost by a third, I think, right?
I don't know.
So it's significantly cheaper for the city. So we all sat down and thought this was a better plan to bring people in because we have paramedics now that are transport paramedics on rescues for Volusia County EMS, which is stumbling, and they want to come become firefighters. So it's much cheaper for the city, plus they have experience to bring them on and then put them through fire school, than to bring firefighters on and put them through medic school. And not all of us go to medic school, so you have to weigh the like percentage of people that come in and want to go to paramedic school. So then the chief came forward and the city was like, oh, we want more medics, so what we're going to do is make now medic a requirement when you get hired. So we just made it a requirement even if you get hired for anything. So really the staffing or putting the staffing issues that come with it, we've accepted it because we made it a requirement for being hired. So that's why we did what we did.
So is there a path to just hire paramedics that don't want to be firefighters?
No.
Why?
Because it defeats the purpose of
What?
fire-based transport, and it'll eat into your ISO rating because you can't have as many
And they
firefighters
can't
on the
participate in
scene.
the pension. So
Okay,
you
take the pension out, they can have another retirement plan. But, so my thought is,
So what's your goal, to reduce your firefighters
well,
and just have
no,
paramedics? But what if you lose?
there's
what
no
if you
goal
lose
on that.
transport?
It's service to the city. So right now, what percentage of your calls are fire-based or rescue-based, EMS-based? I think there's a,
So you have a 30-day window to lose transport. So if you start hiring paramedics with no firefighter, you lose transport, what happens?
I don't know, I'm just asking,
Because it doesn't make any sense if we are not solidifying
Here, let
the
me,
city into transport and making us a transport city, that we secure transport.
here's the real.
We don't even have an EMS chief, so if you hire a paramedic, what do you do with them when you lose transport? You have a 30-day, the EMS can come back and cancel your contract right now for transport in 30 days. What do you do now? You just hired paramedics only. What do you do with them?
All right, the real question is,
You can't ride a fire truck.
the real issue is this. One of the benefits, even though in terms of call numbers, fire calls are always a much smaller percentage of the overall responses. The difference is that when there are fire responses, to meet NFPA and other safety standards, we have to have the ability to put 16 firefighters on that fire ground within the first 5 minutes of the fire. The way that you do that is by cross-training people so that you have them doing that 70 or 80% of the calls doing EMS, but when there are fires, they are also cross-trained and equipped to be one of those 16. Whereas if you had, your units were up with not certified, it would either take you much longer to put 16, or you'd have to commit more of your resources in terms of additional engines and or mutual aid to accomplish the goal of putting 16 firefighters on a single family house fire. So those fire calls, while less frequent, require a much higher load of initial resources. And that's the benefit and the benefit is by doing that, you affect your ISO rating, so your commercial properties save money in their insurance by keeping the ISO rating low, and you're meeting safety standards that are established with regard to safe fireground operation by taking advantage of dual certified personnel when those instances occur. If you go to simply EMS, on top of the problems that were just raised there, the other issue is do you have them respond to the fire at all? And if so, they are of no benefit in terms of fighting the fire or addressing your NFPA response standards. So the city gets a dual benefit, which is why more and more, I think Citrus County just got rid of their EMS and are incorporating those folks into their fire. Polk County has done it a long time ago. Marion County did it a long time ago.
Lake County.
Yeah, Lake County has just done the same thing, abolished their standalone EMS and incorporated those folks into the fire department. Now, over time, when they did that, there's some that just can't or won't become dual certified. Those folks will be gone through attrition. But to take advantage of the advantages of having all your personnel dual certified, so that they're not specialized. It'd be the same thing as if you said, well, we're going to put engines in, we can hire EMTs. But we're going to have units that only respond to fire. Well, that doesn't help you either, because those fire units are able to provide ALS response, which is why we want medics on that fire apparatus to be able to first response and stabilize until a transport unit's available, in terms of addressing a need on the flip side of that coin through dual certification.
Would you rather hire a paramedic at $15 an hour, or a firefighter paramedic that can pack out, go in and make a rescue at $15 an hour and increase the quality of
the benefit of dual certification is huge. I totally agree. We're just thinking, and I was going back to square one on bringing them in the door, and because right now we can hire a firefighter that will never want to be a paramedic and never want to do anything
No,
with
you can't, because you just changed it.
We just changed it and made it.
Okay, but now we're forcing that on them, every firefighter that comes in. So the flip side is, we're going to do the same with the paramedics. Bring them in, you want to do the same, force them to be a
Because
firefighter.
there are a pool
No,
of
there's-
medics that are working for
So-
EMS, some of whom, if they had the opportunity, would be willing to go to fire school. So you give them a job that will pay them to go to fire school.
Right.
Which is a much shorter and less expensive commitment than going the other way around, than hiring firefighters and then paying for them to go to paramedic school.
So let's relook at this. So nobody's forcing anybody because they sign a contract, so they don't have to take the job, which is something that we discussed with the fire chief. We discussed riding out of class. We had pre-employment agreements for people to come on and ride out of class because we were short drivers and we were having overtime issues. So the union worked with the city and the administration to do a pre-employment contract, which they sign on their own. They're not forced to sign, that they will become an engineer because it was a benefit to this city. It wasn't a benefit to us in any way, shape, or form. We did the same thing with the administrative personnel being to ride down into positions for short durations of time during training and overtime, to fill overtime spots so that we could reduce the cost of the city. When we have special events or something that these guys can fill a truck, we did that. So you asked the question of why we don't hire just paramedics and not have any certification. My question was, what are you going to do with those individuals? And this is why we don't, because we have no solidification on a secure contract of transport. We have not committed to transport years and years and years. The city just came out and said transports are losing business. All this money is being lost. What would be the goal if you hired paramedics only that can't function on your fire trucks, can't fill positions of overtime, which is all the other things we did to reduce costs to the city, fill positions of overtime as firefighters on a fire truck, actually be utilized when there's a fire or an extrication, because when we discuss 90% of your EMS calls being EMS, we also have traffic accidents that have multiple fire hazards where people are injured that fall under the EMS category. So if you don't have that firefighter training there, then you have a paramedic standing on the side of the road who can't function as a firefighter. So what would be the goal of doing that in the realm that we're in right now, where we have no secure transport as fire-based transport? We wouldn't be able to fill positions of overtime with that individual to reduce costs to the fire department and the city. What is the basis or benefit you see with hiring just a paramedic? Because I can't see it in this arena. So that would be my question to you.
Here's the other thing. We used to, and this isn't just here, it's everywhere. I mean, it used to be to get hired, you would tell these young folks, listen, you've got to go to EMT school on your own. You've got to go to paramedic school on your own. You've got to go to fire school on your own. And when you got all three of those knocked out, come see us. Well, there's a lot of competition for that limited pool of folks now. So if we only focus on folks that have already gone to fire school and try to bring them in the door and say, well, if you'll come work for us, we'll send you to paramedic school. That's one advantage. But it ignores that other whole pool of potential candidates to say people that are walking around that got out of high school, went to EMT school, went straight from there to paramedic school, and then started working for a standalone EMS agency, which are becoming more and more rare. There are those pool of employees that you can say, well, in terms of filling our future needs, why don't we reach into that pool and do the same thing we've been doing for years on the other side and say, if you're willing to come work here and if you're willing and able to become a firefighter, there's another pool of people for us to recruit if we go this route. To bring them in just as medics, again, creates problems both currently and potentially future if the county were to pull the rug out from under transport. Because then, what are you going to do with them? You can't use them in the fire service. But I think there's another potential pool of people that, even for less cost than the old way, that we can get dual certified and get under the roof.
So I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying for career path issues and to quality of service for the citizens and the whole transport issue, let's take that off the table because that's a different issue that is in the process of whether it be a year or 5 years, it's inevitable. But for career path, if we have a nurse out there who is paramedic certified, who doesn't really want to ride in a fire truck, but will come in for 12-hour shifts or whatever's worked out. I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but can be a paramedic and give a service to the City of Deltona Fire Department and the citizens. There should be a career path for just that paramedic. If I came in as a paramedic, I want to be a firefighter because I'm then in the pension, which is a great pension. I do get more money, and there's more opportunity for somebody like me. Absolutely, I totally agree. I'm just saying, I would hate, with a need, right? We've all identified the need of we want to get transport, we need the right amount of people.
But you said we couldn't couple those things together.
I'm not saying we can't, I'm just saying, let's give it as an option. That yes, if you want to make more money, if you want to go into the fire pension based on 175, you need this other certification, and you need to get it by this time.
So,
And we make that opportunity available to them.
The problem is you have limited ability to use that person, so how do you plug them in? And how does a shift commander know, today I can use that ambulance to respond to a fire, tomorrow I can't?
So quality of service, though, let me just touch on the two things. Quality of service to the citizen. Hiring simply a paramedic that can't ride a fire truck. If the transport unit goes down, you hired them, which happens all the time. We didn't have it for days. We had to rent one from Ponce Inlet. How does a single cert paramedic riding a temporary transport unit provide a service that a paramedic firefighter doesn't? That's dual certified. So a dual certified person would provide much better of a service to the citizens than a single paramedic because of the simple fact that they have the training in extrication, they have the training in fire where they can assist on, carbon dioxide and removal and all that other stuff. So I have a hard time, again, in this realm, understanding how hiring a single cert over dual certification would ever provide a better service. And then the other question I have for you is, what's their career path? What's the career path of a paramedic that comes into the fire service
They can't be an
as
officer.
on a transport unit? What do? They just ride it, that's it?
The same as
They
an
can't be
engineer that doesn't
anything
want to
else.
go any higher. That's it. That's all they want to
That's
do.
not a career path. That's a voluntary, that
Paramedic
engineer
never-
has a career path. He can choose to go all the way up to a chief.
So that
A person that
paramedic
comes
can
in
also
as a paramedic.
choose to go back and get that firefighter certification. I'm just saying, don't close it, don't make it a mandate
What's their
at this.
career
Well,
path?
but here's-
Even if they choose or don't choose, what is the career path? A
Here-
career path has it's established what you can do. Your choice of doing it or not is, and I'm not arguing with you. I really would like to know what that single cert paramedic coming in, other than riding the box for the rest of their life or choice, is their career path. Is that it? I mean, is that their career path?
They still have an opportunity to get a fire certification if they decide. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. But it fills a
So then-
need.
So
They're not
here's the other thing. What would we do if
So
someone said, I want to get hired, I'm a firefighter. I hate medical. I don't like the sight of blood, don't want anything to do with it. I'm a germaphobe, I don't want to be around sick people. I'll come work for you. I'll respond to all the fires you want me to and extrications, but I'm not going to EMT school, I'm not going to first aid school, I'm not doing CPR, I'm certainly not becoming a paramedic. You could probably find those people and hire them. But how then do you regulate? You say, well, I got an engine now that is full of people we've absolved of responding to a percentage of the calls that this department is responsible. But we don't want to go, we're not going to go. If it's that kind of call, we don't want to go. Or if I do, I can't legally treat anybody. Same thing as if the medic now comes aboard and says, I'll come work for you, but I don't want to do this 15 or 20% of calls that you do. I'm out on those, don't send me to those.
Right.
I'm not involved. I don't know how you can, in a department that provides the multiple services that they do, allow somebody to come in and say, well, I'll come work for you, but I only want to do water rescue. I'm not going to any other calls but water rescue, because that's my thing. That's what I want to do.
So we can move on. I'm just saying, my point is, the fire rescue services is changing, has changed. And we, as a city, need to look at what those changes are and how we best fit the needs of the citizens. And I'll end it there. It's a great program that we're looking at, bringing in. I'm just saying that it's changing. If we look nationwide outside of, as Johnny said, this realm, this arena, this city limits, which is what we need to do. This is a top-notch fire department. And we need to keep up with the times, and we're progressive in a lot of areas. So there is a way to meet the needs of the citizens, I feel, which will be a continuing conversation.
Right, but the way it's changing, John, though, right now is exactly the opposite way. Whereas over the years, and Florida is a great example, there were originally many places that established their EMS system as separate from the fire department, standalone. And over time, they've, for a variety of reasons, have gotten rid of that, found it inefficient, unsustainable,
Yes.
right? And so county after county after county has gotten rid of that and said, we've got to get dual certification, we've got to merge these services, instead of having,
Except pollution.
well, except pollution.
Which is not far behind.
Right, but I mean, there's some holdouts. Lee County EMS, where I live,
Yes.
it's the last
Yep.
holdout.
Yep.
And Collier as well. Although Collier started wandering into trying to offer fire services. But virtually every place else, from Marion and Lake most recently, and Citrus is going on right now, where those standalone EMS, St. Johns County got rid of it years ago, Clay County got rid of it years ago and merged them. That the move in the industry is to put all these services under a single roof instead of trying to offer them kind of as a cafeteria plate of the communities. It's inefficient, and there's very few places where it has succeeded. And by the way, Lee County would not have succeeded had the fire departments not finally stepped up and offered first response ALS, because for years Lee County would not allow that to happen, and their response times started making the front page of the news. All right, we've got 4 articles to give you today before we close out of here. So I'm giving you 4 articles. I'm giving you 17 wages, 34 pension plan, 48 longevity. Those 3, as I present them to you today, are offered as a package proposal only. The versions that I'm giving you today are married to one another on those 3. If the package is not accepted, then we reserve the right to return to any further proposals on any of those. And then separately, I'm giving you a counter proposal on Article 18, incentive pay, and that's offered as a standalone. And I believe that you will find to be status quo, with the exception of adding the
peer support technician, and then I think because working out the way the last contract was, they had like one list of incentives and then another list of incentives. So we just took working out a rank out of one of them and put it all together. So it's the only thing new is the peer support technician.
incentive pay first.
Thank you.
Those.
And you'll send these electronically
Yes.
to Debbie? Thanks.
John, you take that up.
Sure. No problem.
To the gatekeeper?
Sorry, guys.
Will they then be forwarded to me, to somebody?
Yeah, Debbie will send them to you, Wayne.
Okay, thanks.
They saw this lady, they called her, and now she showed up. She's like, "Can you help me right now?"
What kind of help? Oh.
I was like,
So let me make sure I have this right. So
yeah.
even though this is crossed out, so it's got a line
Right.
through it, but it's got a line under it, you're saying that's what you're,
Yeah, all of this is out and we're just dropping it down and putting it all into one. The only real substantive change, I think it had to do with the way that, I think there was one set of incentives for one period of the approved prior contract and another set of incentives that picked up.
Right, so why does this say 22, 23?
Was it just-
Up in the first paragraph, I don't know.
A typo?
It might have been from our
I'm not
earlier
sure.
proposal.
I just need to know how to,
Might have been worked from our earlier proposal.
I'm sorry.
You can have my chair if you want.
If you're on incentives,
yeah.
I don't know.
Where does that say 22, 23?
So it's crossed out in the first
Oh.
paragraph, it's crossed out, but yet it's underlined in bold. So I'm not sure.
They can read.
What is this?
Initial.
What section?
18.
I'm not touching it. No, what section?
Oh, section 1.
About third line down, fourth line down.
That's weird.
Was that from was that built off of our first proposal?
where it says will be was,
No, it says, so fourth line down, so where it was 2017-18, it now says 22-23.
that whole article is gone.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we get that whole,
Okay,
all that language is gone.
okay.
Because we moved it down to yeah, we repackaged basically.
One for you, though. What is this? Okay. And this is true. And put that part in the law.
And again, I have to apologize, guys, I'm the only one here today. So
Yeah.
It was a citizen problem.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one here, but they're in a hurricane conference. Big year.
I learned a lot.
Not that conference, they're at
A different one?
They're at a EOC conference in Deltona. Gene and Chief DeBose and Chief Snyder are.
He probably already has it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Are these union, are these union proposals? Is that what-
Yes.
They are.
Okay.
So you have 3 bundled.
I should have 13, 17, 18, and 34, and 48.
Okay, let's do incentives first, since that's the standalone, Article 18.
Of course, we're not going to do it.
And again, what we've done here is consolidated all the incentives into one list. And the only substantive change is that we've added on this page 2, number 11, peer support technicians. Oh, what about this? This is an increase to special events.
So we moved on event pay. Are you on incentives?
Should be.
Incentive pay.
I'm gonna do that right now.
Article 18.
Is Brandon on?
Okay.
I don't know.
So yeah,
You're
with
testing me right now.
event pay, we were at like 30, 32, because
This is
we
a
averaged
change.
all the salaries, and you all proposed, on your counter proposal, $30 an hour. So we were like, okay, $30 an hour, event pay.
What is this here?
Can we just go back to 1, because I think just the coloring and everything
It's
will.
brand new, that was brand new, I had.
I know, but is it in addition to this?
Yeah,
Oh, that's the paramedic. I'm sorry.
that's officer.
Yeah.
That would be paid as an incentive.
All right, so we had also previously, and this is still in this proposal, new section F on a paramedic longevity supplement to encourage people to become paramedics and stay paramedics and reward.
Hold on, where? I'm still on incentive.
Yeah, 4th page, consider.
Oh, can we just start at the top, because the first page
Okay.
is a little confusing. So we're getting rid of section 1, so we're starting at 1, the employer shall pay,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Explain 2 for me.
Because you have the struck out language, and then on page 2 is the actual full list.
That's the list for which you can receive 21 cents per hour.
Yeah,
This is subject to
the
the,
formatting's off, but yes. That goes with
Here.
that.
still maintain the maximum 4 duties per employee, special ops not being one of those.
And that would be the actual new section 1. basically.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
All right, I follow you now.
Okay.
Just different colors, so got the rainbow here,
Yeah. Two.
okay,
Where'd you dizzle?
and then, okay,
Section 2, we had proposed in the earlier, increasing the event pay to
3032, I think it was we averaged every salary, which is how we got the original number
Okay.
in the prior contract. You counter proposed $30 an hour, so we just went to $30 an hour.
okay,
And then we had previously proposed the paramedic longevity supplement. Reducing this to 5 cents, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, 5 cents per years of service as paramedic calculated the starting period of the calendar year they become cleared Volusia County paramedic.
Yeah, because I corrected the typo that I made in the original proposal, where up in the language above the equation, I put 10 cents, but the intention was 5 cents. So then when you do come down to the formula, it's correct.
It's 5
It's
cents.
in line with each other.
And then section 4, the SBC pay incentive is moved from the MOU
Into the contract.
into the contract.
So my understanding is instead of increasing to 235, which would be the expected, you're adding a longevity pay.
Yes.
So a brand new paramedic is going to get 235, but a paramedic who's been here for 10 years is going to get an extra 50 cents on top of that,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Is there a standard of, how many hours a paramedic needs to ride and transport per year?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So I could have 12 years as a paramedic and not ride and transport,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I'm going to get paid
Getting paid for
to
the
keep my
longevity
certificate.
pay.
To keep my
You're still running
certification.
medical calls.
You're still running medical calls the way they were before we did transport.
And Volusia County is running BLS trucks and taking our engine medics.
Right.
So, I mean, all our medics are definitely
Now they're
medics.
transport medics, now Volusia County.
Engine medics are transport.
So Phyllis, just for conversation piece, so my skill set as a paramedic, I'm going to keep honed a lot sharper if I'm on a transport vehicle making more calls.
Not true.
Well,
Not true? Okay.
for argument's sake, let's say that's true. For that reason, we put in the seat pay to reward those people that are on the rescue. They get the seat pay.
Right.
And that's now becoming more common. We just did the same thing in Hillsborough County for their bargaining units. Same thing. There's a recognition that there's more involved in the paramedic service because you're with the patient longer, there's more paperwork and blah, blah, blah. So to reward those people above and beyond. But in terms of your skill set, you sometimes, let's set the Volusia County situation aside where they're, right? If you're waiting on transport, you're on a non-transport, you don't have the option of racing to the hospital when you should be racing to the hospital.
Right, absolutely.
So you have, sometimes your skills are more needed there than when they can be put in a transport unit and be taken to where they need to go. You might be at a house for 30 minutes waiting on a transport unit to arrive. All of what happens with that patient during that 30 minutes is on you as the non-transport medic.
I just disagree with the premise. I'm not saying it's the opposite.
Right.
I'm saying the medical director expects you to perform at a minimum standard as a paramedic under his license. It doesn't matter what truck you're on. Because if you have the equipment to perform the procedures that are in his protocol, you darn well better be able to perform them and perform them correctly. So that's where I kind of disagree with you. Now, where I can meet you is patient care time, duration of patient care time, based on the truck in certain instances.
Right.
But like when we work at cardiac arrest, many cases we'll work it at the house for 45 minutes and then we get a pulse back and then we make the decision to transport because basically, long story shorter or longer, it's better for the citizens, the family members at the house to let that patient be called at the house and be with them. So,
And I think the other element of that proposal too is that paramedics, the longer they're paramedics and the longer they're practicing, gain more experience and are more seasoned, have seen more and had the opportunity to experience more and treat different levels of patients. And therefore, I think the longer someone maintains that paramedic certification and provides those services, the greater value they are than a paramedic just coming out of school who has not yet done certain skills, seen certain medical situations, had to make certain medical decisions. I think by and large, the longer you're a medic and you're held to those medical director standards, the more valuable you are. All right, the package, starting with 17 wages. This proposal is based on a 4-year agreement and provides for a 2% base increase in all 4 years annually.
So you said it's a package. If we say no to anything, essentially you're going to take this back?
I understand with regard to the 3-year deal, we'll talk about that in terms of if you were willing to take this but only for 3 years, we can have that discussion. But I'm saying what we don't want is this. We've lowered our ask on wages with regard to what else we're doing in this package in longevity and pension with that in mind. I don't want someone saying, well, you offered 2% wage, you were willing to take that. No, that's not true. As a standalone, it was offered as part of a package, and if the package were to be rejected, we don't want this cherry picked. Section 2 is the illustration of how the base pay is calculated. Section 3 is the move to $15 an hour minimum, starting pay at $43,680. Section 6 outlines that in the future, when we negotiate the next contract, these are the comparable departments that we will rely on in both sides' proposals.
How are these comparable?
Well, they either are like-sized or they are in the local operating area. They are departments that you're directly competing with under 447. I think it's.
So we took the same cities for pay study purposes, for the pay study that was done for the fire department.
Well, like size, are we talking
What
land area,
dimensions?
residence?
Yeah, it was a blend of demographics,
Okay.
call volume, square mileage, department size, generally speaking. And those were mutually agreed upon based on the fact that the city utilized those same exact cities for a pay study for general employees and city hall and everybody, so.
At the end of that is new language for completion of the next pay study. The comparable cities will remain the same, those that are listed. Upon completion of future pay studies for city employees, reconsideration will be given to what comparable cities to be utilized for fire department bargaining unit employee pay studies. And then during the term of the CBA, if the city is to conduct a pay study and engage an outside, we want to be sure that the fire department's classifications are included in that pay study. Next is Article 34, pension. Our proposal is to lower the contribution rate for employees 1% a year, starting at 10, then 9, 8, and ending at 7 if we go 4 years in fiscal year 25-26. This other language was in our original proposal regarding $100,000 of the reoccupied transport monies being applied annually to the unfunded liability of the pension plan, and effective upon ratification, the retirement health care subsidy being increased to $20 per year of service. I think the rest of that strike through was because all of that stuff, I believe, has already been done.
That's correct.
And finally, Article 48, longevity. This is the proposal that we gave you in January. And we estimate the cost to be $3,139.50 annually.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like for everyone.
Yeah. For the bargaining unit, cost of the bargaining unit. Any questions about any of that?
I guess, just because I will likely be asked, why the reduction in the pension plan?
Because comparatively, the amount that this bargaining unit is paying for their pension is among the highest. I don't think it's the highest in the state, but it's among the highest contribution rates for pension. Any and all
Apples to
firefighters.
apples comparison to benefits?
Well, what we're doing is
What?
we're trying to figure out your do we ever know the 16%? Did we ever get those fire departments that have the 16% donation?
All right, so
They didn't,
anybody on the FRS with special risk, any firefighter in special risk FRS is paying 3% for their benefits. This plan has some benefits that FRS does not have, but to the tune of 7 or 8% of payroll more for those benefits. No. And so I think that if there was an argument that this plan was grossly underfunded or had been grossly mismanaged to the point that the city was in dire trouble or the contribution rates were through the roof, then we might feel differently about it. But even at this.
So
at
we
the
have to
end-
wait until it's an alarming,
Our
unfunded?
Our proposal puts $100,000 per year towards the unfunded liability in the life of this contract. That's $400,000 that would flow directly to the pension plan's unfunded liability from transport revenues. There's no indication that this pension plan is in any trouble of getting into serious financial trouble. It's over 80% funded. The institute at FSU that originally started the grading said anything 80% or better got an A grade.
Okay, depends on who you ask.
The Leroy Collins Institute graded them. They had a whole system there. At the time, there were, for a multitude of reasons, pension plans, municipal pension plans around the state, police and fire, that got D grades and C grades and B grades because of their unfunded liability or their lack of contribution rates or their poor investment returns and management of the funds. This, under the Leroy Collins Institute, which was pretty conservative, their analysis of pension plan health, this would get an A. This plan would get an A. Every plan.
I'm not sure if anyone realizes that the city actually pays 2.5 times as much annually towards the unfunded as it does just to keep.
In virtually every plan, the bulk of the
not-
total cost is for unfunded liability.
whether anybody realizes it or not, we're making a concerted effort to address that issue.
Yeah, and basically what we did is when you brought up the 16% and average pensions and all that other stuff, we requested a average pensions across the state, and that's when we realized that we're in the higher range, and we want to bring it back down. I mean, just like you want to
But you
bring
have
it
to
up,
compare
and you
benefits.
brought it out to us.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
Orlando pays less than us, and they have significantly more benefits.
But when
In
you
fact,
made your
when the
proposal, we didn't.
FRS goes in the drop, the city pays a substantial amount of money back into it, you're under FRS, but when you go into the drop in this city, you pay nothing.
If you want to do an evaluation on every fire department's benefit package in the state, I mean, good luck.
No,
I don't think anybody has enough time to do that.
you can do the 12 times we have.
Well,
We're cities,
and we're happy to have that discussion. There's no way that the benefits in this plan justify them paying essentially 3 times the contribution rate as is required of the special risk employees in the FRS.
Well, then why don't we look at moving new employees to FRS?
Because your pension costs that you're concerned about, the minute you close this plan, go through the roof. In the short term, for the next 10 to 12 years, your pension costs would be outrageous.
Or you just present that. Make that as a presentation.
It would be outrageous. Every place that that's been done, there's a price to be paid for that, because the plan can no longer assume anything beyond, it's a closed plan.
Oh, I get the whole pyramid.
And I will tell you that when Lewis, Longman, and Walker were traveling around this state convincing people to get out of the FRS and start these 175, 185 plans, the story was, you need local control, you can't trust the state, you need to be able to make your own investment decisions, you need to keep your money home.
So the current percentage that the union's paying, the employee's paying, is based off an actuarial study based off the benefits?
Not the percentage, no, sir. That's totally negotiated. The only thing the actuary does is says what total percentage of payroll is needed to fund this pension plan, its benefits. From that, we take the amount that flows to the offset the city's costs from the premium tax monies. Everything else then is a percentage that must be split. Somebody's got to pay it. The employees have to make a contribution, whatever's left over the city pays. In this case, the employees are paying 11, and whatever's left the city pays. There's nothing in the actuary that says who pays what. It just says this is the amount that must be contributed to provide these benefits.
To get that, right, to get that.
To get the benefits. Where it comes from, the actuary doesn't play a role. Those are developed through collective bargaining here and every place else.
So when you ask that question, do you know how all the other benefits came to exist and how they were paid for?
Do I know Deltona?
Past, other than the one I just did with increasing our pension, do you know how they were paid for?
No.
Okay.
Okay,
It's added to the unfunded liability.
Is that, okay, well, you might want to
well,
check.
check on that, because
I mean-
in some of those instances, there was an
We can look at it.
infusion of accumulated premium
How were
tax
they paid
dollars
for?
that were allocated to dump lump sum into the
Kick
plan
down
to
the
pay
road.
for that benefit ahead of time.
So,
You can shake your head no, but it got
so
kicked
how,
down the
so what
road.
did so when they were doing a benefit, where did the money come from to the pension to pay for that benefit?
It got kicked down the road.
Okay,
Well,
that's good.
The benefit change in 2020 added over $1 million to the unfunded liability.
how much was infused originally with the benefit changes from the accumulated premium tax revenues?
I'm sorry, again?
How much was infused into the plan in accumulated premium tax revenues to offset any of those past benefit changes?
Well, I don't have I don't think I have the history of everything that came from the state. It varies. So,
I was on the board and I can tell you.
It's okay, don't worry.
oh,
That
go
is-
ahead.
Not necessary.
Yeah, John, we're all on this together. I mean,
Obviously,
doesn't-
we
I
are
mean-
more informed about the need for pension changes, so
So
we
here's
don't
the
need
deal,
to
we've been
explain
coming in
it.
here all day, like, teaching you about how to run a fire department, and it's kind of getting to the point where it's kind of sad. We have your attorney stating to us that inflation is a problem, but yet, you know, what your proposals are completely unreasonable. You're pushing it to market limits.
Address the pension, the issue, the question.
We're not
They
gonna,
couldn't even be implemented unless they were cost neutral, determined by a third-party actuary. So please, like,
That was my original
Do the
comment.
full homework.
They weren't.
I've sat on a couple of pension boards before, but that was my original comment, that an actuarial study's done, and then it is negotiated on where that money's coming from.
For the change you're talking
For the change, for the
Change,
added
money-
benefit.
The money was never negotiated prior because there was a fund actually that paid for it. But
It was accumulated
paid for
premium
it.
tax money.
It couldn't have been implemented unless it was cost neutral. It couldn't have.
All it takes is a decision by someone to say
Just-
do it. It just adds to the unfunded liability. How do you think,
You- and the
how do you think we
unfold-
got from
you-
an unfunded liability of 367,000 to 8.7 million in a
Because-
period of
Would you like an explanation?
14 years?
And how many members were in the plan 14 years ago?
Thank you.
I don't know.
That's what I mean.
So you're making statements, but you don't know why the statements are the way that
The
they are.
unfunded liability could be tied
John, if
to,
it was cost neutral, the unfunded wouldn't keep going up.
There are
If
way
the
more.
actuary
That's
was looking at
That's not-
not kicking the can
That's-
down the road for 30 years and looking at more of a 15 to 20, it would have had more cash going into the fund over the last 12 years.
okay, that's not entirely true, by the way. Any time this plan or any other plan misses its mark on its assumed rate of return, which is not negotiated, by the way, that adds to the unfunded liability.
I understand that.
So in any bad year,
I get
investment
that.
year, that money increases it. So it's not just that all of that unfunded liability came from added benefits in the
I
plan.
didn't say that.
So let me ask you a question.
I also
Have you
said
ever
earlier,
been to the
hold on,
pension
because
board?
you just, hold on. Because you're all acting like I don't know how a pension works.
No, we just asked. and
Foster and
you didn't answer.
Foster, I talked about this before, the interest rate that they're using, your rate of return every year is higher than what they're even showing their average has been, which every year just adds to the unfunded liability.
I understand that, and let me tell you why a lot of those plans, when the Leroy Collins Institute got involved and they took a look at this, what we found is that, Hialeah is a great example, cities had been going to the pension plan asking that the assumed rate of return be increased, and increased, and increased, and increased, knowing that if they got it high enough, their pension contribution could be almost zero.
Sure.
The city of Fort Myers police pension plan went 10 years without the city putting a single nickel in that plan.
Shame on them.
Because by tinkering with the knobs on the having nothing to do with PVA.
Shame on them.
And lo and behold, 10 years later, the plan is in trouble. It's got huge unfunded liability, and they come in wanting to blow it up and punish the people that are still there.
And no one should be surprised.
So have you been to the pension board at all or any pension meetings to request changes?
That's not my job.
No,
We
actually,
appoint-
the
we
city can
appoint
go to
people-
the pension board.
We
It's not through
appoint people to the
negotiations.
board.
Have
Those
those
people make
people
the
on the
decisions.
board may ask the pension board to make changes that you're presenting here.
Right.
Because that's how those changes would be effective.
Typically, that is exactly how it's been done, which is
So
how
if
they
you're not
got
doing it-
increased and put the plans in trouble without employees having anything to do with it, or the union, because the city typically goes to when they want changes made in the actuarial assumptions because it affects the city's ultimate contribution rate, they go to the board and say, we want that lowered. We want that down to 7, or we want it up to 8, or we want it up to 9. And the pension board, knowing that it's the city that's on the hook for it, they generally have, if it's a non-negotiable item, pension boards, in my experience, say, that's what the city wants, that's what we do. Send the finance director there, the finance director says, listen, we want this adjustment made to the assumed rate of return. Or to the actuarial tables, or to the mortality tables, or the disability tables. Pension boards generally, okay, as long as everybody understands what could happen to the pension contributions as a result. The only thing that can't be done unilaterally like that is a change in benefits or costs to the employee that are negotiated.
And Mr. O'Grady, you sat on many pension boards, so is that true? Cities, they can go and they can request changes to the pension board, and the pension board does those rather than come to negotiations to make those changes.
An ordinance isn't
Yeah, the
required.
city can make requests, but then it goes through the process, yes.
Yeah, but that's normally how it goes. So if the city should be making those requests to the pension board, and I attend a lot of meetings, I don't see them.
And that doesn't even have to be,
Shame on them.
an ordinance isn't
What
even
we're
required
talking
to change the assumption rate, I don't believe. I believe that's internally set by policy. So very easy to change. But the unfunded liability, there's a lot of things that contribute to unfunded liability, both positively and negatively. When people work here and don't ever collect the benefits, they don't vest in the benefits, and that money stays in the plan, that lowers the unfunded liability. When investments don't hit their mark, that increases the unfunded liability. But I believe historically, my understanding is that accumulated premium tax revenues were dumped into the plan at various points to offset these pension changes.
So we'll go back, as you said, on plan, so that you should know the premium tax dollars were at contention for years and years and years. And those premium tax dollars were locked down, and in some places we're in the millions, including Deltona, and the only way those benefits could be assumed or approved was through an actuarial statement provided, because the state regulated those premium tax dollars for nothing but benefits.
Right.
So we couldn't use them for anything. So the cities, additional benefits. So the cities fought in court, whatever way you vernacular, because I'm terrible at it, but to acquire those premium tax dollars to pay for things, and that's where the change came. So that money was actually lump summed into the plan to offset that unfunded liability or pay for a percentage of it based on the actuary. And in those days, there was two actuaries, one for the city, one for the pension board, just like we're trying to do now. And it was a little more confusing. And those numbers had a jive to dump that cash flow in. So they were lump sum paid for.
So I think what it comes down to is the risk tolerance of the city on and we talked about 82% funded, what a national average is, and what the city feels comfortable having, because as we've all said, they're on the hook. At the end of the day, the city's on the hook, and I'm not sure the city's comfortable with the current funded percentage.
Well, then they would go to the pension board.
Right.
And they would address that with the
And
pension
they're
board.
looking at it.
Okay.
It's just that's where we are right now, is how comfortable they are with the liability.
And back to the dichotomy between the two numbers you stated in reference to the unfunded liability. It's a very young plan. Just because the difference between those two numbers sounds rather large to your everyday person, doesn't mean that it is too much. It's probably, and I believe it is after being on the board, the appropriate amount based on all the math, the growth of the amount of members in the plan, and as with time, you're going to have more retirees receiving benefits. So I think it's just a natural progression. It sounds like a good talking point. Obviously, I disagree, but it's just not what it's being made out to be.
And I believe the employer contribution rate on the FRS special risk right now is 28.
I think for executive is 30.
No, but special risk I think is 28 right now. Percent.
16 point for executive, which would be.
And what I find interesting and have found interesting is that in the 90s, when many of these plans were created, they were created at the encouragement of Lewis Longman and Walker, who went around the state telling people, you got to get out of the FRS, you got to bring this money home, you got to take control over it, blah, blah, blah. Now, they've changed the signage on the snake oil wagon, and they're back out on the trail, have been for the last several years, telling people, you got to blow up these plans, these are the craziest things in the world, don't know why you ever did this, you got to get back to the FRS. And they've made money going in and going out. And they have been successful in blowing up some of these plans. Some of them more than 100% funded, blowing them up anyway.
So just to let you know, we increased your availability of premium tax dollars the last contract, and the city actually resisted it because we know that we want to fund the plan. So we have been looking at it for a while.
And I think if you were to accept our proposal to commit from the transport monies an additional $400,000 over the next 4 years to that unfunded liability, how does it change the face? What does an actuary tell us about what the plan looks like at the end of those 4 years if we take that action? Nobody wants the pension plan to get in trouble or to be underfunded. That doesn't help anybody.
You guys are in the FRS executive plan, correct? Your benefits package is an FRS executive plan?
All of the
I mean,
non-fire.
I don't know because you've been here a short period of time. Are you part of the FRS executive plan for your retirement?
I believe so.
Okay. I was making sure because I don't know, because sometimes people go into different things, like the chief's in like a 401k.
He's not an man.
All right, where are we Monday? Where's the location? Here?
Wayne, you have anything? It seems we're going to be wrapping up here.
No, I'm good.
What time will we start and where are we on Monday?
9 at the center.
We're at the center.
At the center?
Awesome.
Are we done for the day?
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Wayne.